this meeting to order.
Worked hard on that speech.
So, the first item on the agenda tonight is we have a public hearing before us tonight. The public hearing is related to a tobacco vaping ordinance that was presented to the ordinance committee meeting and then submitted to the town council at our last meeting. This is to potentially raise the selling age for tobacco and tobacco products, especially including vaping type products, from the current age, which is 18, up to the age of 21. So although there's a state push to look into doing something similar, many towns in Connecticut are creating their own ordinances. So Southington is considering the same thing this evening. So I'll turn it over briefly to the town attorney just to give a little overview of the language of the ordinance itself, and then we will open it up for public comment. So Attorney Pfutner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As I described at the last meeting, this ordinance falls under the public safety and health aspect of municipal power. So on the first page of the ordinance, which is pretty extensive, as you'll see if you're looking at a copy of it, we go through all the statistics of the negative effects that tobacco products have had on the health of our public, most specifically children under the age of 20, I guess adults under the age of 21. So what we're doing here is what I believe, is it Bloomfield? Bloomfield hasn't done it. Hartford's done it. Bridgeport has done it. I know that Wallingford had been considering it. I don't know if they've passed it yet. But this will require any retailers to register annually, get a license to make sure that they're complying with the non-selling of tobacco products to people under the age of 21. In the event that they offend any of this language, there is ability to fine them and make sure that there is compliance with this. If there's continued non-compliance, there is a stage of increased penalties which can ultimately result in the revocation of their license. So we're hoping that this is a success, and that is briefly it.
Okay. So before we open up to the public, I'd just like to acknowledge and thank a few people. First of all, of course, STEPS, our prevention coalition, has been instrumental in working to present this to the council this evening. So Kelly and Megan, thank you on behalf of STEPS for all the work you've done. I'd also like to thank Shane Lockwood, who's our regional health director. I don't see him here, but he certainly was instrumental as this has impact on the health and wellness of our residents. So I'd like to thank Shane Lockwood for his involvement, and especially Deputy Chief Palmieri for all his work. The Deputy Chief really took a lot of the language that was given to us from Hartford and then molded it to be specific for our community needs. So thank you to all those people for their efforts leading up to tonight. I'd also like to enter into the record, the council received 2 emails, and I think the third was just sent to me, so I'll enter into the record. They are all in favor of the ordinance. The first is from Tobacco 21. Her name is Shannon Quinby. She actually came to the ordinance committee meeting to speak in favor of the proposed ordinance. She is the Eastern Regional Director for Preventing Tobacco Addiction Foundation, which is based out of Washington, D.C. So we have a letter for the record that she is in support of it. I'll pass these down to the clerk as we go. We also received a letter from the American Heart Association. This is Jim Williams, who is the State Government Relations Director for the American Heart Association, speaking in favor of it. And today I received an email from, this afternoon, the American Lung Association. This is from Ruth Canovi, who's the director for the American Lung Association for Connecticut. So we'll enter all 3 of those into the record. So with that, the microphone is now open for any residents that would like to speak in favor or opposed to the ordinances before us this evening. Oh, Councilwoman Morrissey has something to enter as well?
Yes, I do. So I have a letter actually on behalf of the Plainville-Southington Regional Health District from our director, Shane Lockwood. He couldn't be here tonight. He's in Washington, D.C., actually at a coalition of directors of health speaking with the National Association of City and County Health Officials on national issues, including reducing funding to local health departments and legislative issues such as Tobacco 21. Mr. Lockwood fully supports this ordinance. He says, "I believe this ordinance and the many similar ones throughout the country will once again have a tremendous benefit on public health." So I'd like to enter that into the record, please.
Thank you very much. Okay, so with that, we'll open the microphone up. I'd ask that any resident or anyone that's speaking, please state their name and address for the record. Microphone is open.
Hi, I'm Sarah Mead. I'm a junior at Southington High School, and I live at 340 East Street in Southington. And I'm here to speak in favor of Tobacco 21. So I've been on the STEPS Youth Council for 6 years, and as Mr. Palmieri was saying, it's a community coalition that focuses on substance abuse prevention among the youth. And personally, I think that by raising the age of purchase of tobacco from 18 to 21, that's going to help protect and prevent students my age, the people I go to school with, future generations, underclassmen below me, to have a better health and safety for their futures. And I think that we as a community need to be taking an active role in our future, in our future youth, our citizens, people who are going to represent us. So I think that we should pass this ordinance.
Thank you very much, Sarah.
Hi, more just to ask a point of clarification. Do I have to be a town resident to be able to speak?
Can you give us your
My
name?
name is Bright Johnson. I'm the State Director of Government Relations for the American Cancer Society. And unfortunately, I was running a little late trying to get here today, and the email to send to you with our letter of support is on my desktop, and I forgot to press send. So I would
Go
like
ahead,
to
if
submit
you-
this for the record if I could.
Sure.
And then if I could say a few words about,
Sure.
we are in strong support of local Tobacco 21 ordinances. This is an important issue, as nationally 95% of adults who smoke start before they turn 21. In Connecticut, 1,300 kids under 18 will try tobacco for the first time this year, and many of them will move on to using multiple tobacco products. In fact, the U.S. Surgeon General estimates that 56,000 Connecticut youth alive today will lose their lives prematurely due to tobacco use. Last month, the Centers for Disease Control reported that overall tobacco use among middle and high school students is on the rise for the first time in almost a decade, largely fueled by the overwhelming increase in youth e-cigarette use. In just 1 year, the number of youth using tobacco products rose by 1.3 million kids in 2018. E-cigarette use has increased 78% between 2017 and 2018, with flavors as the key reason for youth use. In 2018, 2/3 of high school e-cigarette users had used flavored e-cigarette in the past month, and 1/2 had used menthol or mint-flavored e-cigarette. And over 60% didn't know that their e-cigarette contained nicotine. And that, I think, speaks very, very loudly to the tobacco industry's marketing practices and the lack of state funding for tobacco cessation programs. The time to act is now. This epidemic has hit home right here in Connecticut with disturbing uses in youth e-cigarette use in our schools. From 2015 to 2017, the number of Connecticut high school students who used e-cigarettes doubled, and at the same time, school disciplinary actions associated with the use of e-cigarettes went from 349 to 2,160 in 1 year, a six-fold increase. I think I will leave it at that. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. Thank you very much, and I would like to submit the letter if I could.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate it.
Would anyone else like to speak? And Mr. Fischel, this is specifically for the Tobacco 21 ordinance. Okay.
Baina, good evening. I said the last time about this tobacco business. When I was young, we were three brothers. My father died of cancer, was 54. And when we used to be home, my father used to say, see if they smoke. No, they do not smoke. This tobacco business is about taxes, money. Now, people can buy whatever they want to do. Just to say what happened in life, many people die. But because of life it is, when you have the money, the parents say, okay, go buy a cigarette, go buy this. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Last call. Absolutely.
My name is Ken Farbstein, and I'm also not a resident. I appreciate your listening briefly to what I have to say. I'm from Needham, Massachusetts, which was the first town in the country to go to age 21. And I think I have my daughter's, my local government to thank for my daughter's life, because my daughter was very reckless and adventurous in every which way. She's now 23, but nicotine was the one thing that she didn't get in trouble with and didn't get a habit with. I have a brief letter of support I'd like to enter for the clerk into the record. And
Thank you.
and in Massachusetts has an age 21 law statewide. The momentum of the first few cities and towns was very important in getting the state legislature to realize that this is a very popular thing throughout the state. So I really appreciate your leadership in being one of the very first towns to consider this. And thanks very much. I'd just like to, perhaps I can drop off for the clerk some of the products that are sold to teenagers, the flavored cigars and jewels and vapes and so forth.
Thank you for making the trip from Massachusetts. We
You're
appreciate
welcome.
it.
Thanks for your consideration.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Please come up. Sir, did you want?
Chris, I'm sorry.
I thought you had your hand up. Okay. Would anyone else like to speak for or against this ordinance?
I'm sign it real quick and put his name on it because it's not on there.
Oh, sir, would you mind just signing your name to this, just so we have it? That would be great before we submit it. Would anyone else like to speak? Last call?
I didn't even notice.
Okay. Just before we close the public hearing, just in response to one of the speakers, I can share firsthand the amount of incidents in the school system that have increased as a result of specifically vaping type products. So I did share those statistics, thanks to the superintendent, with our high school and middle school students that are getting involved in vaping. So I think that is important, and one of the speakers touched upon that. We also talked at the steps level as well as at the ordinance committee level about including possession or not, and decided to go against adding language for possession in the ordinance, because we do feel that the student is really the victim. And so we're targeting more the supplier, the people that are selling to kids underage, rather than targeting the victim. We heard there's all different flavors, such as bubble gum and grape and cotton candy, and those are really marketed for younger kids. So this really will be some strong language, if passed tonight, that sends a message that the town stands behind this ordinance. So it is on for action later in the agenda. Okay, so we'll move on now with the regular meeting. So I'll ask the clerk to call the roll, please.
Michael Ricchio.
Present.
Victoria Triano.
Here.
John Barry.
Here.
William Diedzik.
Here.
Tom Lombardi.
Here.
Don Maselli.
Present.
Kelly Morrissey.
Here.
Christopher Poulos.
Here.
Christopher Palmieri.
Here. Prayer.
Yes, I have it.
Oh. Councilwoman Triano has the prayer.
Heavenly Father, may we consider the people of Southington and always render what is right and just for our citizens. Help us to be compassionate and caring for each individual while still seeking what is appropriate for the entire community. Give us wisdom and guidance tonight. Amen.
Amen. And if I can ask John DeMello to lead us in the pledge. Thank you. Just looking for a motion for our minutes for the last meeting.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
And we have a second. Any discussion, omissions? Okay, with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the minutes pass unanimously. Thank you. Moving on to council person communication. We have one item listed here, and I'd like to start with that before I open it up to my colleagues for any other comments. The community is very aware. Unfortunately, we had a pretty substantial loss with Tops Supermarket, which is really been a landmark in our community for so long, and we thought it was fitting tonight to have a little conversation and share with the public all the people we need to thank for their efforts related to Tops Market. So first of all, on behalf of the council, and I'm sure I speak for the town, saying John and Betsy and the entire Tops family, we offer you our deepest apologies, condolences for everything that happened, and we stand behind you in your efforts to rebuild. So I'd like to just acknowledge some people. And first of all, our surrounding towns, our neighbors really did a phenomenal job coming to our aid. So on scene, aside from all our Southington firefighters, we had Meriden and Cheshire Fire Departments, Farmington's Canteen Unit. We also had a Hartford County Fire Coordinator on scene. His name is Steve Hess, and he's affiliated with Simsbury. We also had our neighbors to thank for coverage at our stations. Plainville and Cheshire, who are our normal towns that cover us, they manned stations during the scene when our firefighters were out at Tops itself. So thank you to Plainville and Cheshire Fire Departments. And then a little bit beyond that, and again, this was an extraordinary event, especially in the time frame that it happened in the middle of our, as it turns out, biggest winter storm this year. So Task Force 54 is a regional task force that also helps cover, and they were also available. And this is Farmington, Burlington, Avon, Canton, Simsbury, and Granby. So they were on standby. They were ready to assist us in need. And again, it just speaks to the brotherhood, really, between the fire departments in the different communities and our neighboring towns. So I'd like to thank all of them. I'd also like to thank our town departments that were responsible, certainly, of course, first and foremost, the fire department, and I'd like to, if you could, extend our thanks to the entire department. We appreciate it. Also, the Southington Police Department, so Deputy Chief Palmieri is here. You can please extend that thanks to your department. The Southington Building Department, the Southington Plainville Health District, AMR, our ambulance provider, for staging just in case of any casualties, and thank God there were no casualties. I'd also like to thank McDonald's on 894 Meriden-Waterbury Turnpike. The owner is Dino Karasis, and the manager, Derek Ludwinowitz, and they really were instrumental in helping us as well. We had to use the facility, which, as everyone I think is aware, is located right across the street from Tops Market, and again, in light of the weather conditions, it really was beneficial for us. So I'd like to thank them. I'd also like to acknowledge Councilwoman Trano pointed out to me that really Arby's and McDonald's have
Arby's, McDonald's, and Stop and Shop all extended themselves and said, Tops employees, if you need something to hold you over, we'll give you a job. And so it wasn't just the citizens of Southington, the businesses in Southington also rallied to support those folks that have lost their jobs. And so it really is very heartwarming to see all of this.
And it's amazing, and I think we've all answered similarly, but when we're asked what's our greatest strength as a community, I think it's really how we come together in times of need. And it's amazing to see, not only just within our community in Southington, the personal community, business community, but also our neighboring towns, how everyone really came together in time of need. So just like to acknowledge and thank all those people. And our chief is here, our fire chief is here, and I'd like to invite you to the microphone if you wanted to add anything further. I'd also like to thank Commissioner Moyse from the fire department for being here as well.
After taking over as fire chief 7 months ago, this wasn't one of the defining moments that I was looking for in the organization. But I'd like to say that the town council, all the elected officials, and the citizens of Southington should be very proud of the job that the firefighters did that night. It was a very difficult task, and this is what we call, for most people, once in a fire department career that they're going to see. So it definitely had a big impact. The weather absolutely was not the best for us. Our turnout from our volunteers was absolutely fantastic. Our career, just to give you an idea, we were probably at one point in time flowing about 6,000 gallons a minute into that building, and that's for an extended period of time. We also need to note that the water department was very helpful in increasing the pressure to ensure that we had the ability to continue flowing the amount of water that we needed to flow to at least try to contain it to where that particular building. When I was responding on this call, being the first major fire here in Southington, and listening to the incident commander on the call, decision I have to make when I'm going to a call like this, is this something that I need to take command of, or is the incident commander who is there doing a good job? Well, I'll tell you, I don't think there was anybody that could have done a better job. I'm very proud of the job that he did, and we had myself, Chief Paul, our deputy chief, we had chief officers from Meriden on location. Overall, I consider this a success on one hand, but it is such a loss to the town on the other.
Chief,
again,
who was the incident commander?
Eric Heath, Battalion Chief Heath. He was the one who just went out
Yes.
the door.
Yeah.
He did a like I
Wanted
said,
to acknowledge him.
he did an absolutely fantastic job. When I met up with him when I first pulled up, I said, okay, what do we have going on and what are we doing? And he laid out a plan for me, and I said, that fits for what we're doing, perfect. Found out then that Chief Paul had already gone and assumed command of the other side of the building. Overall, like I said, everything worked seamlessly. Cheshire, Meriden coming in, our volunteers coming in, the system worked. But again, it's definitely not one of the thing that I wanted as a defining moment here. But overall, like I said, it was pretty impressive for the job that they did that night. That's nothing but pure hard work. Hauling those lines, charged hose lines around, moving them back and forth to be able to get to different positions on the building. That's a lot of work and a lot of time. You figure we got dispatched at 7:36 in the evening. The incident commander left at 3:38 in the morning, and our last unit left the scene at almost 5 o'clock the next afternoon.
Wow.
And after we left, we ended up going back several times for small fires that were, smoldering underneath all that debris. But overall, very, very impressed with the operation and the response of the members of the organization. I think
Chief,
it
we
was
just
very
want to say
positive.
thank you. To you and your staff for all that you've done. And please extend our thank you to the entire department, full-time and volunteers. Amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Any questions?
Chief, I'm glad you brought up the volunteers. They were a very big part of this fire.
Absolutely.
And
We
they
had probably about 35 to 38 volunteers on the call.
That's
It
fantastic.
was absolutely fantastic. We couldn't have done it without
Great.
all those members being there. This was a fire that required a lot of people. And if they hadn't been there, we would have had to call for additional resources from outside the area. So,
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Again, we're very fortunate to have such a fine fire department. Please extend our thanks to everyone in your department, and especially to Battalion Chief Heath. Sorry he got called out, it was timely. But please, the call of duty, as always, right?
Yes.
But please thank everyone in your department for us. We can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, any other council person communications? Yes, Vice Chair Maselli.
Okay. Couple of things. First off, I was contacted by a resident regarding the passing of William Coach Bibby Heyman of Plantsville. I didn't have personal knowledge of Coach Bill, as they call him, but apparently he'd been involved in our youth basketball community since 1977. It was truly remarkable to see on social media the tributes pouring in for this gentleman from the people whom he had coached. over the years, but then also the fact that now he was coaching their children, refereeing at the children's games, taking care of the time clock, all of that sort of thing. So apparently, if you're around the court, chances were that Coach Bill was somewhere within the vicinity, including at, my husband said to me, oh yeah, I saw Coach Bill 2 nights before his passing, and I heard that from so many people. So he was even at the men's basketball games and whatnot. I know that Coach Bill's wake is this evening. I'm sure I speak for all of us that our thoughts and prayers go out to him and his wife Gloria and his family. And I want to mention that in lieu of flowers, donations may be made to Southington Middle School Athletic Committee. You can contact either Mike DeFeo or Christine Shanley Buck for more information on that. And, I always speak to the spirit of volunteerism within our community, and it appears as though, Coach Bill fit that bill and went above and beyond in this capacity and in a very, it's seemingly quiet and humble manner.
And aside from his involvement in the town, he was the assistant coach for Kennedy Middle School, too.
Right, I
hence
saw
the
that.
hence the
Right, so I guess just a great guy and just one of the hundreds and hundreds of volunteers in this town who, again, since 1977, it's decades. I also am happy to announce that we will be displaying a beautiful hand-painted apple from the Apple and Arts Initiative here at the Municipal Center as a result of my colleagues, my fellow elected colleagues. As you all know, the Collaborative Public Art Project produced 40 hand-painted apples for our community. It raised funds for 4 nonprofits, Southington Community Services, Bread for Life, Southington United Way, and Southington Community Cultural Arts, also known as SOCA. So many of these apples are already on display within our town at local businesses and by the residents who sponsored them, but a select few of them, 9 to be exact, were slated for auction at the upcoming Calvin East Foundation Gala on April 6th. One of those apples depicts people picking apples in an apple farm, and among apple trees, and we felt like it really belonged with the town, and that the town should have ownership of this and be displayed here at the Municipal Center. So as you all know, pain in the neck me, I reached out to all of you for a donation. I also reached out to all Board of Education members, all Board of Finance members, Town Manager Mark Schoda, and Superintendent of Schools Tim Cannellan, and all of you, God bless you all, have made this come to fruition. That in a couple of weeks' time, the apple will be on display here. You're free to use it at our Apple Harvest Festival Parade in any manner you'd like, because we, the collective, own it now. And I just want to thank you all for your generosity to all of my colleagues. There's still 8 remaining apples that will be on auction at the Calvin East Gala. So there are still other, Stacy Dolan's favorite apple will be up for auction as well, but we will own our own apple right here at the Municipal Center. So thank you to all of you and to the 2 other boards that I mentioned. Thank you.
excellent. Other council person communications, Mr. Lombardi?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I did receive an email, I think it was 2 weeks ago at this point, and I think this is more of a reminder comment that we usually make in the October-November timeframe, but I'll say it tonight just to reiterate. We had not the big winter storm, but the one prior where we had a few inches of snow. The transfer station was closed that day. So just a reminder to residents, if there's inclement weather, check the town website, because the same workers who plow our roads are also working the transfer station. So I explained that to the resident, and we discussed it at Public Works. Everything was done. Everything was posted to the website, so there's nothing further that the town can really do in that situation. The second item that I have tonight is that I'm going to be introducing a resolution from the town council that I'll be passing out, which shows that this council, pending discussion and a vote at our next meeting, that we should stand together in opposition of tolls in the state of Connecticut. So I'll be passing out a draft of that, and I look forward to the discussion at our next meeting, and I hope that we can add it as an agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Any other councilman? Mr. Ricchio?
Do you need that as a motion to be on the next agenda, or would you're just going to put it on?
This is the first I've heard of it, so I'll just take a look at it, and it shouldn't be a problem. Any other councilperson communication? Yes, Mr. Poulos.
On March 4th, the Historical Society Board meeting met. They wanted me to share that their appraisals have been extended through the month of April. So on March 23rd, April 6th, and the 20th, free appraisals at the Historical Society. If you have an item you think might have historical significance, you can bring it down and find out if it has value or just information about it. Also, just wanted to give a shout out to the Public Works Department. As you know, I've been giving updates about the lower level of the Historical Society, its transfer over to that group, and then the work that's being done. Annette Turnquist and Gabe Calandra have made this happen with the approval and support of Town Manager Shota. They have gone over and cleared out. They've completely gutted most of the walls down there. There's a lot of moisture in that basement, and they were finding mold. They gutted out the sheetrock, all kinds of wood partitions, carpet, and not just to gut it out, but then they also voted to purchase over $4,000 worth of commercial-grade dehumidifiers to maintain it dry. And then the Public Works also brought over a map cabinet from the assessor's office, from what I understand was very heavy, and made sure that that was delivered safely and securely down into that lower level. So just a shout out to Public Works for all they've done to support the transition in that building and the improvement of that building.
Thank you. Any other councilperson communications? I just have two quick items. I'd just like to acknowledge the Board of Finance. 1 week ago tonight, I attended the public hearing held at DePaulo, so thank you. There were residents that came out and spoke to the proposed budget, so I'd like to thank all those residents. Mr. Fuschillo, I know you spoke at the public hearing, so thank you to all those residents that did come out last Monday at DePaulo to speak to the public hearing for the Board of Ed and the town general government budget. I'd also like just to share and update the council as well as the community. We had talked a while ago about next steps to address diversity in our community. So the superintendent has now announced that he's forming a coalition for social justice. It's a group of 30 individuals joining together to help advise the school district in areas such as equality, diversity, awareness, access, and advocacy for all students and staff members. The group will consist of parents, students, staff members, members of community agencies, and others. So representing the town council, I'm pleased to say, will be Councilman Lombardi. So Councilman Lombardi will represent the town council with the superintendent on this board. The work will be facilitated by senior staff from the State Education Resource Center, or SERC as it's known, which is great to have a state agency help facilitate these conversations. And their first meeting will be Tuesday, March 19th from 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. at DePaulo Middle School in the Library Media Center. So again, just wanted to update the council as well as the public on steps we're taking to move forward, to move forward with addressing diversity issues in our community. Any last call? Any other councilman communications? Okay, so we're moving on to, we have a report tonight from the Economic Development and Planning offices. So Lou and Rob, I will turn over the microphone to you. And again, just to update the public, we do these presentations the first meeting of every month just to keep the council as well as members of the public aware of what's going on within our many town departments and to make sure everyone's kept up to date with the happenings. So Lou, thank you, and we'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, council members, administration, staff, and the public.
No, this was.
Good evening. As I was saying, For the record, my name is Lou Perillo. I'm the town's Economic Development Director. This evening, I'm joined with Rob Phillips, the Town Planner and the Community Development Director. We also have a special guest, someone who recently purchased a property in town for a manufacturing company, Shant Majarian of Juniper Lighting. As you've heard before about our Fast Track program, this evening's presentation will highlight it briefly, but what we decided to do is not just give you our perspective of it, but also someone who recently experienced it. So he could share his journey, his experiences, the pros and the cons and whatnot of what happens in a development. The Fast Track program is designed to inform potential applicants of what the regulatory process is. We try to foresee as much as possible, but there are some events that are just not something that can be seen. The big part about it is managing expectations. It reduces frustrations. People are well informed of what the process is. Sometimes we'll actually see potential applicants not move forward, and that's okay. We'd much rather see somebody be fully aware of what's ahead of them than get into it halfway and get stuck or run out of money. So, so we feel that the Fast Track program vets this out quite well. As you can see in the presentation from Mr. Majarian, we can't foresee every aspect, but we try to facilitate as best we can. And by we, I mean not only the land use staff and the administration, but the town council as well as the planning and zoning. Planning and zoning has just been phenomenal in helping economic development throughout the town. Shant is here this evening. He's going to go through what it took to get Juniper Lighting here. We've been working with him for over 9 months. He's been before the council before and planning and zoning. All right, and Rob Phillips will start with the Fast Track program, highlighting it. Then Mr. Majarian will give his presentation, and then as a follow-up to that, we'll tell you what's going on in recent activities. Thank you.
Thanks, Lou. Rob Phillips, Director of Planning and Community Development. So I'll quickly just go over what we call our Fast Track process, which is basically an attempt to facilitate the land use approval process. It's particularly helpful when we have folks who really don't understand how things work in the town in general, especially the land use process. So with that, I'll just start with, and I don't know, apologize for the screen. I'm not sure what's going on here as far as not being able to see the full screen, but our mission, kind of unofficial mission that I kind of live by, is predictability, transparency, and expediency. Lou and I both agree that those are incredibly important for economic development and the perception of the town and working with the town, because just like any person would have a reputation, a town has a reputation as well in the building community. So Fast Track development review meetings. We hold these meetings. Basically, it's a staff meeting that we have, a standing staff meeting every other week, and we also meet during days of planning and zoning meetings as well. I try to align when there's a potential applicant or someone inquiring with the town as to what they can do or what they want to do. I try to align those requests with these meetings. I already have the staff members there. We lead it, planning, economic development. Engineering has staff members present. Building has staff members present. Health, fire, and water. So it's really kind of a one-stop shop for somebody to come in and have all of their questions and concerns answered. We have a whole range of an applicant that really doesn't really quite know what to do yet. They're just thinking about, well, can I do this at this location or that location? They don't have any plans developed yet. But we also have more developed plans where someone will come in with a site plan and just kind of go through the process to make sure they meet the regulations and that they meet all the staff concerns at the outset. And have everybody in the same room at the same time kind of helps with, I don't know everything about the health department, and each department doesn't know everything about each other's department, but when we're there, we can kind of address issues that may have impacts that cross different departments, and it works out very, very well. So kind of a quick rough outline. Day 0 is basically what I was just explaining when we have these meetings. We may have more than one. It all depends. If any applicant needs more than one, we're absolutely open for business, and we set that up. Days 0 through 2, roughly, we'll get a formal submittal for the application, and we distribute that to the land use review, site plan development review team. Within that period of time, from about 2 days to 28, it's really typically about a week or two max. We'll review the plans, and all the different departments will make their comments and send it out to the applicant. Then we require the applicant to respond to those comments as well. 14 to 21 days, that's kind of the magic number. So when you submit an application, if we're just talking about a site plan application, which is administrative, and if it meets the regulations, the Planning and Zoning Commission has a duty to approve it. If we're talking about that basic process, we're looking, as soon as we get the formal submittal, we're putting it on the next agenda, and many times the site plan, if it's not too complicated, is ready for action that next meeting, which is 2 weeks. So that's about as fast as you possibly can get a land use approval, is 2 weeks. 21 days is there as well, because if it's a special permit process or something similar like a subdivision, it requires a public hearing, a re-subdivision, requires a public hearing, and we need 21 days to get the required legal notices squared away. And then within that period of time, up to 65 days, I'd say 98 to 99% of our applications are approved or approved with modifications, potentially denied. There's action on those at Planning and Zoning within that time frame. So in my experience working through a few other towns in my career, we're fast. We're very fast, but we're also very efficient. We take into account all of the concerns that are raised, and we make sure that we try to make those balance all of those issues, because obviously there are some issues that impact other issues, and so you try to find that natural balance, but they have to meet the regulations at the end of the day.
Rob, before you move on, I just want to thank you for sharing with us this aggressive timetable, because we certainly want to help any new businesses that's interested in coming into Southington. So having an aggressive plan, I think, really helps to, as the name implies, fast track the application to get in here. So thank you for that, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, and I'll add that this actually is paraphrased, but it comes from our Land Use Development Review Guide, which I'm always promoting, which is on the town website on the front page in little yellow boxes on the right. And it lays out this and our expectations on both sides of the table, as well as some general flow charts. We did the best we could to generalize them, but in a lot of cases, an application doesn't follow that perfect flow chart line. So with that, I'll turn it over to, we have someone who's going to tell their version, their story of experience with Southington. And I will say that this one moved about as fast as we could possibly move it to our side of the equation. So without further ado, I'll introduce Mr. Shint.
Thank you so much. Hello. I'd like to thank the council for having me here again, and for the town residents as well. And I can definitely echo that if anyone here has ever tried to move a business or purchase real estate, there are many headwinds that come with that. And I could say certainly that my experience with the town, zoning, planning, and everything around that was absolutely not one of those headwinds. And the reason why we're here, and happy to report that we finally closed on the property and have started work, is very much because of that. So I want to thank everyone for that. And this is, I, for one, wear a lot of hats. I would be lying if I said I knew exactly how the process works in and out. I would have to thank also my builder, Bill White, who's here, who has been instrumental and sends me updates all the time, really singing the praises of everyone he's worked with in the town and saying how fast and efficient this is. He's had a lot of experience in New Jersey, and he keeps making the comparisons, and his mind is blown. So let's, with that, I would like to just quickly give you my perspective of this journey, which has been a long one, certainly for various reasons, but also introduce the company as we will be now members of the community. So I'll kind of race through some of just the background of the business. This is our showroom in Brooklyn. We are currently located in Brooklyn, New York. That's where we manufacture our product. It's also where our sales and marketing team is, and the whole group. We've been there for about 4 years. 5 years in this location. The business has grown substantially over that time, and it's very much predicated on this philosophy that we have, that good design is essential and has the power to transform people and places in meaningful ways. Our business is very much the intersection between design and technology. We operate ostensibly in the lighting and accessories, lighting accessories business, in a very new kind of niche in that business, where it's high-end architectural lighting for spaces like co-working spaces, which are growing dramatically, hospitality, new offices, tech offices across the United States and Europe and the world. So very much we're known for precision products. Everything is very thoughtfully designed. We put a lot of work in trying to reduce as much material from our products as possible. So we're known very much for the design of general minimization and reduction, so reductive design. So we take lighting when we try to put it in the smallest possible case, while also making it look very beautiful. This is some of our team. I think some of them's cut off on the end on that presentation. But like I said, we have a great diverse team of people across the board, from engineers, industrial designers, production, management, sales, marketing, graphics, and so on. Many of them have agreed graciously to come here and to be part of the Southington project. Some of sales and marketing will be remaining in New York City in a new location in Manhattan, where they'll be back and forth with clients. One of our first products, and what got us on the map, is this portable lamp, and it's called the M-Lamp. It was recipient of many international design awards, and it was based off the old miner's lamps and now converted to a more modern interpretation of that, where this battery-powered lamp, I guess probably most appropriate for glamping purposes, if you would, but very much a kind of put us on the map. While it wasn't our number one seller, probably due to its pretty high price point, it really did make us a player in the design industry. And then from there, we continued to expand into sort of this architectural lighting world. All of our products are really push the boundaries in an area, and I think that's a big challenge. It's kind of how we roll with everything we do. You can see here some of our chandeliers that have 24 articulating points that can be moved and manipulated on site to create almost any shape. Again, here you see high-end advertising office in San Francisco with our wall-to-wall fixtures. We do very interesting installations using this modular lighting system that we have that could be combined, that's combined through magnetic connectors, and essentially can be turned into just about anything, but is real workhorse in a lot of offices and high-end offices, banks, and tech offices alike. Some of our new collection, and you can see here just a few of how our pieces could be both very functional but also very decorative as well. So just a little bit about kind of where we came from and quick history. I started this business in 2011 after a 15-year. Yep. Sorry, sure. Yeah. Move it over a little. So after a 15-year career in banking, yes, perfect. So after a 15-year career in banking, I decided to launch my own business. I had some family who had done traditional brass lighting back in Canada, and so I'd grown up knowing a little bit about it. In short, it was a crazy, reckless move. I was doing quite well in banking, and there was a year or two at least where I was not without regret. But things have moved on in the right direction. I guess just some perseverance, and today I'm much better off than I've ever been. Certainly satisfied with the work that we do and the impact that we make in our surroundings and our communities, and bringing beautiful things to the world. So from there, we launched the M-Lamp in 2013. In 2016, we expanded to architectural lighting. Today, we're just about entirely in that high-end architectural lighting space. Through 2017, we showed at various trade shows and continued to expand geographically into European and Asian markets. And in the end of 2018, in 2018, we really started thinking about how we're going to find new space, because we were running out of space pretty quickly in our 5,000 square foot facility in Brooklyn. And so we set out naturally to upstate New York, because that would be the first most obvious place. And then we eventually expanded our reach beyond that, just kind of a 2-hour radius around New York City, really kind of agnostic, to be honest with you. At that point, we were just looking for a good home, a nice building where we could move into, and one that would reflect some of the history and heritage that's inherent in our product. So we wanted something old, preferably an old mill building, and something that we could repurpose and turn into a really interesting, modern place based on an old building. So we looked around a lot. We went as far as Rhode Island, but ultimately I found a place online very simply, and it was here in Southington, and this beautiful building, mill building, 157 Water Street. So, so 2019 has been a very active year for us. When it first embarked on this, it was an interesting sort of almost fake pump where it's like, this is going to be easy. You talk to the broker, this is really easy. Talk to the bank, no sweat, everything's good. And here we are about 18 months later, and it was quite a journey, but very rewarding, and certainly something that we learned a lot from. Just here quickly, just one of the newest products that we have, we just applied for patent on this. We're very excited about this, and we believe it's going to expand our business and our reach into a lot of new markets. So throughout this whole move and consideration of how do we expand not just our product line, but our capabilities, and with this new place, we were going to look to add to our finishing, polishing, spraying, and machining capabilities, all things that we're outsourcing right now at the moment.
Awesome.
So here we are. For those of you probably have passed this a million times, and this is the old Florian building, and it's charming, it's beautiful, it's no fuss, and it was kind of love at first sight. So we knew there'd be some work on that. Here's a 2-hour radius, by the way, in Southington, right there on the edge of it, from New York. Again, it started off with this building, and then you work on this for a year, and then you realize it's just bricks, and ultimately where you are, who you're going to work with, all the experiences that we've had with residents in Southington and surrounding towns has been a real eye-opener for us, and it really, it's not something you look for so much when you go shopping around for a place, but it's something that you should be. And here's a list of things that I could really point to, some practical and pragmatic, and others a little bit less so. But certainly proximity to New York City and other economic centers, rich history of manufacturing. In Brooklyn, everyone pushes for this idea. It's a little bit romantic about manufacturing in Brooklyn. How do we retain it? Of course, at the rent rates, it's really not about manufacturing, maybe a bit of craft here and there and so on, and a lot of marketing, to be honest. But trying to recruit people to come and work in a factory isn't necessarily the thing that people want to do, right? They have a lot of different ideas of why they came to New York. And there are many people we have working for us who really do enjoy it. But I think, being in a place where there's a rich history of manufacturing and a recent history of manufacturing and a very alive history or state of manufacturing makes it incredibly interesting for us, and we're really looking forward. We haven't done a ton of recruiting yet, but we will be planning on starting that soon, and working with people really interested in making things. So that speaks to the skilled labor force, proximity to vendors. You can't throw a stone without hitting a very important vendor for us, be it in finishing or machining or any other type of work that we do, which is and very easy to access. So that's very favorable. A proactive town council. Again, I can't stress enough how there have been a lot of players who've helped make this happen, and not least of all the town members, the town council, planning and zoning, and that really was what kind of pushed us over into a reality. Welcoming and community-oriented residents. I was talking to Bill on the way here, and he comes with some of his guys from out of state, and goes around and talks to people, and he was just telling me a story about someone he met, and his colleague was saying, is everyone this friendly here? And incredibly, not just friendly, but willing to help, willing to share their contacts, willing to share, anything that they can, and very responsive. And really that's what's going to push this forward. And so really happy about that. Affordable real estate near the town center. For me, one of the most important things about this space was it's in the town center. And I never really lived outside of a town center. This is obviously not New York, but in scale, but I go get a coffee, get a sandwich, go to a restaurant, already already a regular at Smoking with Chris and Ideal Tavern. So I think there's
Careful.
Yeah. Okay. So love those places, and the only thing I would say I could really honestly think about here is a little bit of an omission. There's a lot of major transportation routes, but none of them are really public and easy to access. So one of the things, thinking about bringing our clients up here to show them what we're going to build, and I'm going to show you a few images of that. We're really would like everyone that we work with to share in this, in the work and the capital and investment we're going to put here. We're going to probably have to bust them up, maybe get them to New Haven. It's not a big deal, but I have to put something. So that's my red bar. So, here, I don't want to dwell so much over this, but there were really ups and downs through the whole process. Again, getting through some of these hurdles, getting, approvals and permits has been super easy. And if you read through this, you'll see those are next to some of those big up blue arrows. Anytime you try to budget a project, it's really challenging, and we kind of encountered that trying to make numbers work. We're a self-funded business entirely, and I'm the sole owner of the business, and so it's something that you get somewhere, you build it, and you got to be really cautious with how you spend that. But I think finally we got to a point where we're really happy. We had a lot of support with some local banks, and but as soon as we got over that, we all of a sudden realized, oh well, there's a river behind us, and that flood insurance became a major issue. It's a really something I took for granted completely, and there was someone, a broker we worked with, who fought so hard. I think all the way to Florida to get different options for us, and we finally, in the end, working with engineering and structural engineers, were able to twist it, or at least get someone to interpret it such that the flood risk was reduced, and we're able to get an expensive but far less expensive policy than was originally presented. We started to hit some deadlines, and this is where the fast track really came in helpful. So we gained some time there, and then after that, we had some issues with the property subdivision. The property lies on 115 Water Street. It shares that property. It's on a land lease, or was. And when it came time to splitting that property, we encountered some environmental issues, and that really stalled the project probably by another 6 weeks, almost 2 months, trying to resolve that and getting an opinion for that. And that was kind of an issue because we were getting an SBA loan. We got an SBA loan, and the SBA was particular about that. Why I bring that up is because as soon as we got that opinion letter and went on the desk of the SBA, the government shut down, and with it, the SBA, and there went another 4 weeks. So it was just one nightmare after the other. Finally, they opened up. We got our paperwork set, and in the meantime, we leased the place. Short story long, we found a major defect, which we had to resolve kind of on the 11th hour, and we're in the process of fixing that now. It was a structural thing about the building. Details don't matter, but it was just another setback. Finally, government opens, we got our paperwork, set the closing, and there we're off to the races. So it just give you an idea that these things never work in a straight line. But they do happen, it's rewarding, and here we are, ready to go, and I'm sure it's not going to be the last of our problems. We still got a whole building to renovate, and with that, some images of what the building was when we first got there. And it looks kind of messy because it was, I guess, in the process of moving out, but really the bones of the building are fantastic, and I've seen a lot of different places, and this was one of the best. You could see a lot of the old charm and the original wood floors and the beams, some beautiful elements and features in the building already. So we're kind of walking into already a wonderful starting point. And this is some of the images of where this is going to go. This is actually the back, so I pasted the wrong picture, but the front will also be, now the entrance is going to move to the front on Water Street, and it's going to be a beautiful reveal. You can walk into vestibule, the spiral staircase, and some of our features with our lighting.
There's going to be a showroom and breakout space on the top floor. And then, heading into the offices, and we're going to build out, of course, all the offices and really do the place up. So build a nice kitchen, bathroom, and of course, we're a design company, so if the place doesn't reflect our product, it just wouldn't work, right? So bringing people in to see what we do, they're going to want to see the whole package. So we weren't shy about some of our plans. This is just a general empty space. We're going to bring in some of our lighting. We're hoping to build a little mezzanine over the little bridge in the back that goes off into now basically the other side of the river, and put some lights around the crown of the building. So you can see we started working, we've cleared the place out, we've already started building partitions, some of the work that we had to do, the structural work that had set us back originally, and and so we're busy. And and that's kind of where we are now. Next last picture of our showroom in Brooklyn is a goodbye, but we won't be done work probably for another 4 to 5 months, maybe longer, depending on how things go. But they're now officially members of the community.
That's
So-
awesome. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. We can't wait for the reveal. We can't wait. We're coming.
And I want to thank you just for taking the time to walk us through, because it's nice to see the process in action. So I want to thank you for taking the time to walk us through. I know you've been before us before, and we're so happy to have you a member of our community. Really, thank you. And with that, I know there's always areas to improve too. So please, if you think of anything, talk to Lou, talk to Rob. We of course want to make the process even better and smoother as we evolve. So please, we always know there's room to grow. So please let them know, and we want to even improve to make the next experience even better.
And I certainly am never short of words, so I will do so. But I will say that Lou has been a partner from the beginning, and he really did make this happen. So I really want to thank him for it.
I have no doubt. Thank you.
Thank you, Shant.
And I'll just add one unique aspect of this project is that because it's so close to the town hall annex here, the day that we had him in for the first time and we're discussing the project and the possibilities, we all as a staff mobilized immediately and walked down there and actually went through the building with him that same day. So obviously that's because it was so close by, but that's the red carpet we roll out. So all right, I'll just move quickly through.
Thank you.
Let's see. I'll move quickly through a couple of things since we were last here presenting to you. I think it was in October. So a couple of projects here. In the residential sector, we have a new framework, a new zoning framework for an age-restricted cluster housing floating zone. That's actually a zone that kind of literally floats out there, and an applicant would come in and do a zone change application. It would land in a particular area. Essentially what it's designed to do is to develop and produce a project that would be similar to this. Is a real project in another town where you have single-family homes that are kind of clustered in an area. They have some common elements as well. And believe it or not, there's actually some affordable units that are actually intermixed in this layout that you wouldn't know the difference. And so that regulation's set up to do that. We do have a project that's coming forward in short order. We have a public hearing upcoming on planning and zoning for one of those zone changes. In the commercial sector, we had the medical marijuana text amendment, which basically just created separation distances for dispensaries that are exactly the same as the separation distances for producers. It's an even, fair game. And we basically reinforce that this is medical marijuana only. It's not to be confused with anything else that the state may approve down the road. Obviously, we're going to read and react when we see what the state does, if they do. And if we need to, we could always enact a moratorium for a period of time and analyze that further. Oops, I'll go back. And then we have a detached signage regulation amendment that's actually up for public hearing as well. It's basically just to kind of refine what we expect to see for detached signage moving forward. And also, Longhorn Steakhouse was approved very recently at the last planning and zoning meeting. It's on West Street. Right in front of the 200 Executives, so that's going to be a good restaurant serving that refurbished and filled building over there, buildings, I should say, with all that office space. In the industrial sector, we have Supreme Forest Products, who just came in for a new, it's called a depackaging building. It'll be right over here. It's fairly large. It's an increase to their process, or at least an efficiency. Their business is expanding. It's just an amazing operation over there. I highly encourage anybody who has interest to reach out to us, and maybe we can set something up to kind of tour the facility or just see what they do over there. But very impressive. So I just wanted to kind of mention that as well. And really, that's all I have right now. If anybody has any questions for me, Lou, or Shan.
Mr. Ricchio.
Just a few comments, and that is congratulations to Juniper. And that's amazing. I think seeing that and seeing our current businesses expanding is what makes it worth all the while to sit up here. I just want to say, Rob and Lou do a pretty good job in what they do. The one thing they're really horrible at is bragging. They don't brag enough, and they should, because if you go to any of the commercial real estate programs around the state of Connecticut, everybody wants to know how they get it done in Southington. And it's because of these two guys, and there's two guys sitting in the back of the room that lead the other end, the political end, Mike Del Santo, Paul Chaplinsky of the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the Planning and Zoning Commission, under their leadership, they get it. They get what the relationship is between economic development and zoning without, killing. We have great zoning in Southington. We're not beating it. So congratulations to your entire team. Please start bragging more. I was kidding. You guys do an incredible job. Congratulations to our newest taxpayer and neighbor. And if you know anybody over at Amazon, we are close to New York City. We have some empty buildings and we have some vacant land. So have them come over here and say hi to us. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to just say that all of this, as I'm sitting here, some of us who've been around a while will remember when this whole thing started. I believe Michael had seen something similar to this, went to John Weichsel. John Weichsel called me in because I was the chair at the time. And we talked about this, kind of fast-tracking these things. And who'd have thought that at this point in time, all those years later, each council building on it and building on it and building on it, and then we see this today. And so it's really quite exciting, and we are all very excited for you. We know Juniper's going to be great, and we do certainly appreciate the reservoir of talent we have in the town already.
Mhm.
But it's just so exciting,
Very.
Mr. Chairman, one on top of another, and this is what we get. Different departments working together, all. The common denominator is vision. We can't grow, we can't adapt, we can't make things happen unless we have a vision. And it's just so exciting, whether we're talking about planning and zoning and these two guys over there in the corner, or our staff here, or the councils that have gone on before. It's just amazing that the vision that has been cast and that we're seeing now, we're really starting to see some of it really pay off. It's wonderful.
So Lou and Rob, we know of the great work. I'm glad that the townspeople had a chance to see this presentation tonight and hear firsthand and see firsthand some of the great work that you do. So again, thank you both. We appreciate it. And Mike and Paul, thank you for your work on planning and zoning. Thank you for being here this evening. We appreciate all the work and the partnerships. What's that? You can go. You're excused now, Mr. Del Santo. But thank you. We appreciate the partnership between all our town departments. And again, just thank you. Okay. So with that, we're moving on with our agenda and our report of special committees. First committee to report is the Farm Heritage Committee. At our last meeting, which was last week, we approved our conceptual plan, so we look forward to, in the near future, bringing to the council our long-range plan for both the Pleasant Street property as well as the corner of East Street and Berlin, East Street and Berlin properties. So we'll bring those forward, the master plan for those two pieces of property. Again, this is more long-range, changing, evolving as we move along, but we're trying to maintain our farm heritage in Southington, so we look forward to a future meeting bringing that to you. Any questions for Farm Heritage? Okay, so moving on to open space, Vice Chair Maselli.
Yes. So just quickly, The Open Space Committee continues discussions with regard to the SOAR project that will eventually be taking place on the Curtis Open Space property. We have more Girl Scouts who want to reblaze or remark trails on our Griffin open space parcel. And other than that, just about everything we did was in executive session because we are actively working on exploration of available and appropriate open space for our community, including the state grant funding that we applied for mid-February, I guess it was. So we wait to hear whether we'll get some money from the state in order to purchase, start the purchase of a wildlife corridor in town. That's it. Thank you.
Excellent. Committee of the Chairs is next, and most of the items, we had 4 major topics that were on our last agenda, which was, the meeting was held March 6th, most of which was discussed already. First item was discussion of the 1920 budget. So aside from the workshop that I mentioned a week ago, there were 2 other workshops. Wednesday evening last week was the general government workshop, and then last Thursday was the Board of Education budget workshop. In addition to that, the Board of Finance, through our finance director, is maintaining a grid of questions between all the boards, so we can keep track of questions and people can see responses from either colleagues on the council or members of the Board of Finance with any, or Board of Education, with any questions they may have as the budget process moves forward. So we're maintaining that. We also talked about the tobacco vaping public hearing that we heard from earlier this evening and will take action on later tonight. We talked about the signage regulation. The public hearing is coming up. We heard about that a little bit in the presentation this evening, and that public hearing will be in the near future. And finally, we talked about the Coalition for Social Justice, which I mentioned earlier in the meeting. So it was a rich conversations on the agenda, but again, most of which we discussed already this evening. Any questions for Committee of the Chairs? Okay, Public Works, I'll turn it over to Councilman Barry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The Public Works Committee met on Thursday, March 7th. There are 5 items that are on the agenda, council agenda tonight for action. Most of those items have been extensively discussed at the Public Works Committee, and actually we have given some highlights here at the council meeting. I'll let the town manager elaborate on those items. Those items include the energy procurement and consulting services, the construction inspection contract for West Street, which is West Street and Jude Lane. The Farmington Canal Heritage Trail final design contract is on the agenda for tonight, and the design of the Marion Avenue Bridge, which has also been under extensive discussion at the Public Works Committee. And we also have a new item, which the town manager will also expand upon, which is bridge repairs to 9 bridges here in town. We also the Public Works Committee proceeded with bid documents for the Memorial Playscape. Councilwoman Maselli is an instrumental part of this project, and she is working with the Rotary Club with partnership with Rotary here in Southington. So we want to thank the Rotary and certainly Mrs. Maselli, Councilwoman Maselli, for her work on the Memorial Playscape. We did briefly talk about upcoming 2019 road projects. That will be ready for further discussion at the next council meeting, I believe, pending information that the town staff has to get together. And we did talk about briefly, Mr. Riccio brought up an issue about the electric vehicle charging stations. We didn't come to any consensus, so I'll let Mr. Lombardi, if he wants to elaborate on that, or if we have any other input from Mr. Riccio to determine how we want to move forward. At the meeting, it didn't appear that there's been many complaints, but I think it was a valid issue that was brought up at the council meeting, so we'll be more than willing to look at any suggestions that might come forward. So, and of course, just remind everyone the new stickers for the transfer station take effect April 1st. People can get them through the town clerk's office. And I don't know if Mr. Lombardi, if you want to bring anything or add anything else.
No, thank you.
Yep.
I was going to mention the transfer station
Yep.
stickers as well. But just to reiterate, the charging stations.
Yep.
We had a very good discussion
Yep.
on that, and it was, I think it was enlightening for most of us there that night. And I think what it comes down to is that are certain individuals, I don't even want to say abusing the privilege, because we as a council did vote for the electric charging stations. Are certain individuals using it more than others? Absolutely. but at the same time, we haven't heard any complaints about one electric car owner not being able to charge their car. That was like the one thing I took away from it. Number two is that town staff has, I'm not sure if it's 2 or 3 electric vehicles, but one, it's a Chevy Volt, and we were told that to charge the Chevy Volt takes about 4.5 hours, and it costs the town in electricity about 63 cents for that 4.5 hour time frame. So I guess for the council, we just keep an eye on it. If we hear complaints of people not being able to charge their cars, then we might need to look at it again. But I think we walked away from the public works meeting saying, okay, not really an issue.
Yeah. I'm going to just add to that if I may.
Yep.
2 things. You're absolutely right. Staff said that they haven't seen a problem when they go to pull their car in. They are able to charge that vehicle. But we did ask the police chief, Mike, keep an eye on it, be aware. He hadn't heard about it, so he was made aware at this meeting, which is a positive.
So I didn't get it. I saw this because a resident, not an electric car owner resident, but a resident said to me, why do we have to pay for the guy that drives that Tesla? It was at the library, and that same car is here quite a bit, for him to charge his car. And I explained the whole thing. And there's no policy. I just explained that, we got federal funding, and it's not really that much expensive to the taxpayers. We're trying to promote green. And when I said that, they were kind of okay with it. But then I started to look once I saw this thing, and that car is there constantly. And for me, I agree, until we get more complaints, and there's not much we could do, but I don't think there's anything wrong with, through the police department, just putting a little note on the window, please share. That's just as simple as that. I don't think we have to be aggressive about it. Just, hey, please remember there are other people that may want to use this, because if somebody comes in with an electric car, chances are they're not even going to realize that guy's there all the time. And that's what those charging stations are for. You want to go in to the library for an hour to do whatever you got to do, you plug your car and then you go. It's not your personal charging. That's all. So if the council agrees to have the police department just put a little note in the car, hey.
Well, that's exactly what we told the chief, that maybe it's time for just a personal conversation with this. I actually saw right.
It's
I was
there
at the
all the
library
time.
a couple of days after that meeting, and I was like, oh my God, there's that car that Mike was talking about. I will say, and I said that at the Public Works.
At the library, the person that runs the maintenance of the library called me. I believe they called me, or the librarian, somebody called me. They told me that one of the cars, the owner has 2 cars. There's a car owned by that person at the library all the time. So when the electric car is not there, they have a Honda. And when they take the electric car, they leave the Honda. When the electric car needs a charge, they put the thing on the charger and they take their Honda and they use their Honda. So they always have a car at the library 24 hours a day.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think that's a little bit excessive.
Right. So we did say that to the
Point.
chief, though, that perhaps that he could have someone at the department could have a personal conversation with that vehicle owner.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Thanks for following up on it.
No.
Jim.
Thanks for bringing it up. It's a legitimate question and issue. One last thing, the water department, they are going to do water main upgrades in the downtown Plantsville, and that is being coordinated to make sure it's done before any of the safety improvements will ultimately also proceed. So there will be some inconvenience on the roadway due to the water main upgrades that the water department will do, and that's planning sometime this spring. So we'll have more pinpoint date as we go forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions for Public Works? Okay. So our last committee this evening is the Veterans Committee. It's my pleasure to introduce John DeMello from the Veterans Committee. I see you have many committee members here. Mr. DeMello, I'll let you introduce the rest of your committee members, and he has a little presentation that he'd like to do for us this evening.
Good evening. It's a great honor to be here again. I want to thank you all. I mean, we report to Mark. Mark's a great boss of ours, and he reports to you. So it's been almost about a year since we got this office, and it's amazing. So thank you once again. And we've been doing a lot of business out of this office. But tonight we're here because we want to try to show you a little bit what we do, and it doesn't have to be just from Southington, because we deal with veterans all over the state that come to us. I guess we must be doing something good.
Right.
But anyways, tonight I got Rachel Walkie here, and I got Peter Longo. who's on the committee, both on the committee. But we got a special lady here. Dawn, I don't know if you know her, but anyways.
No, never saw her before in my life.
We're.
This is a
She's
surprise to me, by the way.
she's an amazing
And
lady.
Dawn didn't even know her mother was being honored tonight, so that's kind of ironic.
We
but
talk every day.
welcome.
Dawn, right, right. Yeah, let me just read this, okay. Yeah, no. I just want to pass something, just to show you guys. This is Dawn's dad.
Oh, my gosh.
And if you look, I mean, you can tell who she takes after, but anyways, that's her mom and dad.
This is
You know,
unbelievable.
both her mom and
This is
dad
your
were
life, Dawn,
in the
this is-
military, in the Air Force. Her father, Norman, was served proudly in the United States Air Force and served during the Korean War. Was honorably discharged, actually with a wartime veteran. Her mom was in during the Korean era, but was not a wartime vet. But I want to get to Norman. I mean, you know, amazing individual. He served his country, got out. He passed away at a young age, 52, 53, I think it was.
52.
Amazing individual, noted in war records and the Korean archives. So, but I want to have this presented by a couple of our committee members, okay, Rachel and Peter.
Oh, my.
Why don't you come on up here?
I know, isn't it?
I met this.
so
I
agree.
met this
Everybody
young
says-
lady here. Amazing person. Great friend of mine. I mean, really. And she's fun to talk with. I mean, really. I get to talk with her at the office a lot of times. But anyways, Pauline Woodchick. I want to thank you very much for allowing us to give you and present a great honor to you. I know you've never seen this before, but on behalf of Harry Harris, who's the ambassador of the United States of America to South Korea, along with Cho Yoon-ji, who's the ambassador from South Korea, wanted to present this to you on behalf of your husband, Norman. And it's just the Ambassador's Medal for Peace. I think I explained this once before. This medal is made from the concertina wire between the 2-mile DMZ, and they melt it down every 7 years, and they turn it into this medal. Unbelievable medal. And on behalf of the Town of Southington Veterans Committee, we'd like to present you with this Ambassador's Medal for Peace that is issued to Norman Woodchick. Thank you very much.
Can I ask you all to join us up on the dais? I'd like to get a photo with, can I ask you all to join us up here?
Okay,
We'd like to
sure,
get a photo, please.
And, you know, I just want to say thank you very much. I think I might have told her 6 tonight, and she showed up at 6, and she called, and I said, no, it's 7, so I apologize if I made that mistake, you know?
Oh, no.
So thank you very much
up,
for
everybody.
coming. We do have 3 others that couldn't be here tonight. Well, I want to explain, there's an individual, there's 2 individuals, wartime veterans from Southington, Mr. William Lenz and Mr. Robert Grover, 2 amazing Korean War vets who are living here in Southington, amazing history behind them. They could not make it here tonight, but they want to say thank you for us recognizing them. There was another guy named Harold Helland. Harold Helland I met at the VA hospital in Newington, not Newington, West Haven. He was brought in by his family. I said, I'm going to get him the Korean, we're going to get him the Korean Ambassador's Medal for Peace. He was a war veteran. We put him in, and he died 3 weeks before we could get the medal to him. But they're from East Haven, so we're going to make it at East Haven presents that medal. So thank you very much for letting us do what we do best. So.
Thank you. If we can have you come right in the center here, and the council will join you down here, we'll get a group photo. Thank you.
But while you're coming up, I just have to say, I saw this on the agenda. It doesn't say who it's for. I talk to my mom every day. She never mentioned this. I'm shocked. So this medal, though, is not for my mom, it's for my dad. It's, okay. Because again, I just want to say, I am the brat of 2 Air Force veterans, and everyone always assumes that the events that we attend are for my dad because he served, but my mom proudly served as well. And everybody always thinks it's for my dad, but my mom was there too. Double brat, double Air Force brat, and then married a Navy guy, a Navy veteran. John DeMello, thank you. Thank you.
Do you want to come up to the microphone, or if you can either come up here or use the...
My husband would be proud to accept this award. He was stationed in Seoul, South Korea in 1953, and the Air Force barracks was in the University of Seoul. And so he was there with the signing with Cho and Lai. And so I want to thank you for this from my husband.
Thank you very much, and thank you again to our Veterans Committee for acknowledging veterans in our community. We appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, so moving on with our agenda, I will now turn it over to the town manager for his report and communications. Mr. Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The first item I have is the Board of Finance. We had a very brief Board of Finance meeting. The only thing of note is that we appropriated $97,000 for snow and ice. As I'm sure you're aware, outside of this last storm that we had, most of them were pain in the neck storms, which required a lot of material, and that's what that is. I expect later in March, since we had the big storm, we'll be looking at probably appropriations for staff, but this time it's only for the ice melt.
Thank you very much.
Questions on that? The next item is touched upon by Mr. Barry. This is the commodities manager. What we did is we sent out an RFP for a commodities manager. As you know, we currently have Titan Energy. We put out an RFP. We had a interview with myself, Mrs. Danello, and Mr. Romano from the Board of Education, Mrs. Turnquist, and our finance director, Amelia. We're suggesting that we go forward with Taylor Consultants and Contracting at $15,000 a year, $7,500 to be paid for by the Board of Education, and $7,500 to be paid for by the town of Southington. Any questions on that?
Oh,
yes, sir.
I have a comment for the other members of the council. If you look at the RFPs that came back, the two that are very complicated, if you will, Annette Turnquist did the math for us and said that it was significantly higher. It was just the base price was about $33,000 on one and $42,000 on the other. So that's just to update everyone on that.
Next item is, and I'm sorry to have to tell everyone, but 5 years has passed, and it's time to do revaluation again here in the town of Southington. So we sent an RFP for revaluation contract. As you see, Teresa Babbins is recommending, in this particular case, Vision Government Solutions, Inc., out of Hudson, Massachusetts. This money has been budgeted. If you remember correctly, we budget approximately $100,000 per year during the off years, so we have enough to do revaluation. Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Shota, who was the company we used for the last reval? Was it the same company?
Off the top of my head, I think it was Vision also.
Okay.
I can get you the answer to that, but I believe it was Vision also.
Okay, thank you. And is this one that will go inside the house, or is this?
This is statistical.
It is, okay.
The next time around, we're going to be doing boots on the ground.
Got it.
So that one's going to be, obviously 5 years from now, that'll be boots on the ground. This is statistical.
Got it. Boots on the ground.
Okay, the next item, Mr. Berry touched base on this one also. This is for the construction for West Street and Jude Lane. If you look at the recommendation from Mr. Hayden, he's recommending AECom and the figure that's in there for the design. Any questions on that?
Yeah, just to remind the public that this item has been discussed probably over a year ago in terms of the planning stages. So it is just the final decision tonight to move forward with an actual contract for once the construction occurs, to do the inspection of the work. So this has been something that's been being planned. The project itself has been being planned for over a year.
That's correct. And,
Yep.
and of course, this is a 100% reimbursement under the low SIP program. The next one is the bridge repairs to 9 bridges. Now, that sounds like a lot, but these bridges are all about 20 feet. These are the culvert bridges, so they're not exactly what I'd call the Golden Gate Bridge. We're going to be doing these projects, and if you see the recommendation from Keith, it's Martin Lero Construction in the Gordon Group. Any questions on that? And the list of the 9 bridges are right there in front of you.
Right.
Very popular night for Public Works. The next item is the Farmington Canal Heritage Design, and if you look at that, Keith also gave you the memo for that, and he's recommending BL Design. Once again, that's a 100% reimbursement to the town. Any questions on that? Next item, once again, is a Public Works matter. This is the design for the Marion Avenue Bridge over Falls Brook, and that's also in here, and it's also a low SIP program, and it also has a grant, and he's recommending Malone and McBroom for the design. Any questions on that?
Yep, Mr. Shota?
Yes, ma'am.
Was this the brook that we were informed this morning by a resident that it's not Falls Brook, that the name is actually Humiston Brook?
There's actually a question of what brook it is. We're talking about the same brook. The question is what the name is. I recommended the Shota Memorial Brook, but that didn't go through yet. So.
Yeah, they didn't seem too interested in that.
Nobody seemed interested in that one.
So we just need to research and ensure that that's
Right.
the actual name of the brook.
More importantly, the location is exactly what we want it to be,
Perfect.
so that's fine. There's one other item, Mr. Chairman, and that's going to be for an open space matter. And I know this is, obviously, the Open Space Committee discussed this in executive session, but this is something that they're recommending, and I'm also recommending, there are 2 parcels, one 900 South Main Street, and the other one is on Woodruff Street, and these are going to be, the property is, it's a list number only because there's not a street address, but we're recommending that for the taxes owed on them, which is approximately $1,000 per parcel, that we take the parcels as a donation from the property owner. All I need from you tonight is to simply give me permission to move forward with a letter of intent, and of course, that starts the process of the 824 and me ordering the Phase 1.
And that is on the agenda under old business, so
I didn't know whether Mrs. Maselli or I were going to talk about that one, but she left.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought that that's why we had executive session.
No,
Real
executive
estate.
sessions for Mr.
Okay.
Carrillo matter.
Got it.
So just to
Yeah.
confirm, Mr. Shota, that's item D under old business.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yeah. And the
So that-
recommendation is just simply to have me move forward with the letter of intent. Normally, in a purchase matter, we go through a whole-blown purchase agreement. This is
Right.
a donation to the town of Sutton.
Okay. Mr. Lombardi?
And I would just ask through you, Mr. Chair, that the town manager explain that situation a little bit better, because I personally had a problem with it at first until I learned the details on it, because my thinking was that we don't want to accept just any piece of land for no reason that's not valuable, that does nothing for the town, that takes it off the tax roll. Why would we do that?
Mhm.
So I met with the town manager
Right.
this past Friday to explain
Right.
more of a rationale behind it.
So rather than waiting, if
I could do it
you
right
want
now.
to
That's
explain it
not
right
a
now.
problem. There are parcels in town which have minimal value to the property owner, which means you can't do, if you do building on it, it's so financially prohibitive to do building on. These 2 parcels, especially the one on Woodruff Street, allows us the ability possibly to use a mitigation factor when we talk about the flooding we have over there. You're all familiar with the Woodruff Street aspect of it. It's not going to be a savior, but it might be something we can use for that. And the other parcel, I felt the same way, although it's not these aren't home run open space parcels, but I believe they're used for the town. And the fact of the matter is as I told the councilman, that more than likely, once the property owner says, they're not worth it for me anymore, I'm just going to stop paying taxes. And what we do is we do a marshal sale and take the property one way or the other. So in this particular case, I felt that as long as the properties are not dirty in any way, so we'll do a phase 1 on both of them. Certainly the Woodruff Street is property that's beneficial to us. And the other parcel also, and I know that Dawn could speak more on the open space aspect of it. But they're not home runs, but it's something that it's an opportunity that I don't think we should give up.
Okay. Thank you very much. Does that answer your question?
It does. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
And that's all I have tonight, Mr. Chairman.
That's a lot.
As the Vice Chair mentioned, we will have I was going to say brief, but I can't guarantee you. We'll have an executive session tonight to discuss real estate.
Okay.
With Mr. Perillo.
Any questions for the town manager? Okay, so moving on to the town attorney's report. Attorney Futner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just briefly, to update on the FOIA matter, Attorney Tony Sheffy has graciously agreed to represent the town at the scheduled hearing on the 19th, I believe. So he's working on preparing that case today. I did speak to the mediator last week, who indicated he'd be reaching out to the Observer and that he'd be getting back to me. It did occur to me I have not heard back from him, so I did inquire with Attorney Sheffy, has not heard back from him either. What we're trying to do is stave off the need for a hearing so that our town officials don't have to miss a day of work from their paying jobs. So we're really working on pushing that forward. So either him or I tomorrow will reach out and see if there's any updates there.
Thank you very much.
That's all.
Any questions? Go ahead, Ms. Lombardi.
For the town attorney, can you explain why we're using an outside counsel when yourself or the deputy town attorney? We have both of those. We have you and the deputy town attorney on staff.
Correct. Attorney Sheffy has successfully and well represented the town before on these FOIA matters. I felt it would be in the best interest of the town to have him handle this, simply not just because of his experience, but some of my back and forth with the Observer had gotten a little negative. So rather than have that be injurious to the town, I thought it'd be best to have outside counsel handle it.
Next question. Did we reach out to the deputy town attorney to see if he would be willing to, or is that a decision that you make unilaterally?
I made the decision unilaterally. Attorney Bedard does work with Attorney Sheffy. They're in the same firm, so they had the option of choosing that between themselves.
Yeah, I just want to thank the town attorney for her comments tonight, because that's important. The communication that you've had with the Observer, this has been an ongoing issue on multiple areas, so I really think it's a smart move, and it's certainly important for us to make sure that if this does go to hearing, there is no conflicts or any challenges that might create any problems. So I appreciate your work on this.
Okay, any other questions for the town attorney? Okay, so we're opening the microphone up for public communications. I would ask any resident that would like to speak, please come forward at the microphone, state your name and address for the record, and I ask all residents to limit their comments to 5 minutes, please. Microphone is open.
Good evening. Tom Curtis, 821 South End Road in Plantsville. I'm here to state my opposition to the plans of the town to run a sewer line through the open space on South End Road, the Curtis plot as it's called. This is not what I had in mind when I proposed this to the town back in, I guess it was 2001. After my mother died, it came into my brother and my possession, and to honor the family history, which started on this piece of property in 1755. And of course, my ancestor was the first minister in the town of Southington. I thought it would be nice, and this is where I grew up, and some of you council members also were in the area. And I just thought it would be a great thing for the family. Now, we researched all of the different aspects of this. And I was upset to hear this plan through a article in the newspaper. And subsequently, in meeting with zoning and with the Open Space Committee, I learned that they really didn't have an idea of what was in the deed. And the deed is very specific as to what is allowed on this property. And I'd like to read into that, if I can. If I can get this piece of paper. I don't know anyway, I'd just like to read this paragraph for everyone that's here. As part of the consideration for this transfer, the grantee and his successors agree that premises herein conveyed shall be retained forever, predominantly in its natural state, forested and/or open space condition, and to provide opportunities for public recreation thereon, while preventing any use thereof that will significantly impair or interfere with its conservation values or interest. No building, residential dwelling, structure, parking lot, driveway, road, or other temporary or permanent structure or improvement requiring construction shall be placed upon the property, except the grantee shall have the right to maintain existing unpaved driveways, footpaths, and other minor surface alterations, to excavate and fill as necessary to accomplish permitted recreational and silvicultural activities, and to construct, maintain, and reconstruct additional unpaved footpaths or minor roofless, rustic improvements necessary or appropriate to assure safe passage, prevent erosion, or to enhance or protect the natural habitat. The grantee agrees to maintain the pond on the premises as a viable fishing pond and maintain any dams, natural springs, or other natural water flow structures as needed to facilitate said pond remaining capable of producing recreational fishing. And then there's other, and at the last sentence I would say is this restriction may be enforced by the grantors or their descendants by injunction or proceedings in equity or at law. Now, the thing that bothers me the most is that no one seemed to really understand what was in this deed until I presented it to them. And no one looked at it, whether it was the sewer committee or what. To me, this is plain English. You can't do this project on this property. It requires construction. And I'm upset about the fact that this was not brought to me or to the family or even to the council or to the Open Space Committee. This seemed to be done behind people's backs. It just wasn't even mentioned. And even tonight in some references, it's still not mentioned. Now, I know there's different opinions on the language, but my interpretation is that this project cannot go forward on this land. And as far as, I know the costs, I know what it entails, but the other thing that is in these, that bothers me, that's in this deed, is that the town has done none of the things that it's capable of doing on this property. They haven't maintained any trails. My son maintains what trails are there. I mow the perimeter of the field so that people can walk. The town somebody cuts the hay on the fields so that they are open and haven't gone back to woodland. The pond has problems. No brush has been cut around it except very small little patches every once, maybe 2 or 3 years, that I guess the park department comes in and does a little bit, but really is totally overgrown at this point. And really, in another couple years, if it's not all cleaned out, no one will be able to get to this pond. So there's a lot of things involved here other than just the sewer thing too, and it really upsets me that the council and the town have bought these properties, but they don't have any budget to maintain them, as far as I know. And I think there should be, and I think before anything is done with this sewer that's going to decimate, I think, 1,500 or more feet of woodland, cut everything down, and be maintained as cut down, I think is not the right direction to go. And I know there's a lot of costs involved, but sometimes in town we tend to build Cadillacs when we don't really need to. I'm not sure what this pump station entails, but as far as I would understand, and I went there tonight, that the pump needs replacing. It's old. My father sold the property for that in 1974 to the town for $1. So that's sitting on a piece that was formerly part of the open space property. So between the town owning that, and I don't know how the connections go together, but anyway. So that's what I wanted to say. I don't know if you want to have this deed page into the records, or if this should be readily available to anyone on the council anyway.
If you want to submit that, Mr. Curtis, that would be great. And if you don't mind, I'd like the town to call upon the town manager, because I know he's aware of this and has looked into this already. So I'd like you to be able to hear as we hear it too. So
Before the town manager speaks, I just want to make sure we have your intent clear on the record, since it was you and, I believe, a sibling who had negotiated the contract with the town to sell it for open space.
Yes.
What is your intent when you sold it? Did you ever envision any disruption?
Never.
So
It's in the deed, John.
right. So I mean, I saw that. I just want to make sure.
Specifically written, those are things
Yes.
that were drawn from different open space proposals from different areas in the state and from the state.
Yep.
And we added some of our own, especially the part about the pond.
Right.
And we wanted to, I mean,
Yep.
we've chased kids out of there for years that fished there when we didn't want them to, when we had cattle on the property. But now a lot of people fish there, but it's becoming so overgrown that.
It's a great property, and I do think your intent should be honored. I think it's important for us as a community that if
All right.
you didn't want this to happen, I don't think it should happen.
Mr.
And
Barry,
that's my opinion.
I'd like to recognize the town manager, please.
You have a situation here, and I'm not speaking for the town attorney here, but you have a situation here where the town understands what we feel our rights are, and the property owner who sold it to the town feels he has different property rights. That happens a lot. So my point is that if the intent is to file an injunctive action against the town of Southington, that's his right to do. We don't discuss pending litigation. I talked to Tom. Tom knows how I feel. The fact of the matter is we have the absolute right to put any trail we want on there. I don't think we disagree with that. We could put trails on there. So my point is that we could put a 20-foot wide trail, a 30-foot wide trail, or a 40-foot wide trail. What we're doing is we're putting a 20-foot wide trail there. If that's his objection to it, then I would stand firmly and say, absolutely, we could do that anytime we want, the trail. It says right in there we could establish new trails. My point is, and once again, I apologize, I'm not speaking for the town attorney, but the fact of the matter is his question to us is that I don't think he disputes the fact we put a trail on it. Of course we can. The second part of it is his contention that the sewer line itself is a violation of that. And that's his position. It's certainly not the town's position. It's not the sewer committee's position. It's not the town attorney's position. So that's how things are in the world. My point is that there's also issues for the taxpayers. If we choose to say, okay, forget it, we'll leave the pump station in there, that's hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're talking about here. So this isn't a decision we make off the top of our head. So that's why we asked for a legal opinion from the town attorney. We asked the state of Connecticut, who also has rights on the property, if they had any problems with it. They did not, the town attorney does not. So my point is that as the manager, I'm operating under my professionals. Eventually the policy is set by the council, there's no doubt in my mind. But the fact of the matter is that what the deed says, what the gentleman says, is his position. It's not the law. The law will be decided if he so chooses, if we have to go to the court.
All right. If Attorney Futner can update us, please.
Sure, I don't have the deed in front of me, but I did spend some time looking at it. what the gentleman referred to was construction upon the premises. So we're talking about above surface, we're talking about residential dwellings, we're talking about roof structures, we're talking about parking lots. The sewer line will pass under, so it's not something that's on the premises, and that's what my opinion was that this is not a structure on the premises.
Okay. Councilman Ricchio.
Okay. I'm reading this. I'm not an attorney. That's a stretch. That's a stretch.
Once again, this is litigation matters.
Mark, it's not litigation yet.
Okay, it's not.
All right, you know what, this is public communication, so what I'd like to do is, let's take the information, if you don't mind submitting that. I think we'll have to, you already submitted the information?
I think this is an important issue. I think Mr. Ricchio should finish his thoughts.
come on.
And this is an important matter concerning town property. I don't want it halt, yes, I don't want this halted. I don't want communication ended.
There's no litigation right now. Has there anything been filed?
The fact of the matter is the gentleman just mentioned that his rights are injunctive. That is a statement that there might be litigation. I'm just speaking, once again, I'll let the town attorney speak, but we have an obligation as administrators of the town not to put the town in any kind of jeopardy. And therefore, anything that's said on the record, if there is a litigation matter, that's why we talk about pending litigation in executive session. If anything we say could be used against us in any pending litigation. So my point is that for my position in this matter, as your town manager is that I don't know what your positions are at this point, but the fact of the matter is until that happens, until you're briefed fully by the town attorney, that I think it's something that we hold off. We heard his position, and it's incumbent upon this board, I believe, to listen to its town attorney and figure out what the town's position would be.
I completely disagree with the town attorney. I think this is totally wrong. Read it.
I think Mike has the
So what I'd like to
It's
do.
very clear what that says.
So what I'd like to do is take the information, discuss this in the future, we can put it as an agenda item. I think it's not going to be resolved tonight, and I think we need to take information and digest it a little bit, what we heard from tonight. So the issue is not resolved, we'll have to look into this further and then get back to you.
If I just may say, I understand all the implications. I'm just presenting a point of view to the council. And it goes a lot more into a lot more things than just money.
Right.
And it's, where are we going? You keep mentioning all the green things we'd like to do in town. Well, this isn't green. So anyway, I understand, and I talked to Mike and Mark, and, I have a different opinion, but at this point, I wanted to present this stuff to the Open Space Committee, which was not aware of it.
Correct.
The council, which was not aware of it, and the sewer committee, which was not aware of it. So I've been to these 3 meetings, and at this point, it's up to the town, as far as I'm
Okay.
concerned.
Mr. Chairman, hang on one second, Tom. Mr. Chairman, I would just hope that nothing will be done on this property until we have fully vetted and we have gotten all the professional opinions, and we've heard Mr. Curtis right now, and many of us are quite disturbed.
So, Ms. Trano, as I already said, I can put it as a future agenda item, but we're hearing the information tonight. I think we need to digest the information, get the information to all 9 of us. Nothing will be done because it will be a future agenda item for the town council. That way it'll be public, you'll be a part of that conversation, you can attend our meeting, and nothing will be done until the council takes action. Okay? Thank you. Mr. Ricchio.
Separate from this, it's been a long time since something got me really riled up. I'm pissed. Going forward, I want, whenever we have a piece of property like this, full disclosure that the town attorney gives us the deed so we can read it ourselves, or read the deed and give us a breakdown of it. I'm really pissed off. Second of all, to Dawn.
Yes.
Because I think we owe it to Dawn as chairman of the.
Yeah, I mean, I want to say something, but.
On the maintenance of the pond.
Yes, we
Because
just did it.
I know we have this crossover between farm heritage and open space, and Mr. Curtis is right. We can't just keep taking all this stuff and just like, oh yeah, we bought it, we can do whatever we want.
All right, so may I go on the record, because I know what you're going
What
to say.
is the maintenance on that pond?
We just did it in the fall.
Okay.
It might have been, Rob Phillips is here, it might have been end of, I wish Dave LaValle was here because he would know the exact date. End of summer, early fall, we actually just did maintenance on that pond because it came to our attention that it was becoming overgrown. Also, I want to get on the record that in terms of a maintenance account, we certainly do have one, and we have never utilized it more than we have in the past year, doing maintenance on all of our open space parcels. And all of that is public record, that's all in our minutes. And as far as Mr. Curtis, it is true, at our meeting just on Thursday for open space, was that just last Thursday? I lose track of time. That was the first time that we had heard about this. He came and brought this to our attention, and then what we were told by staff was that he also brought the matter to the SOAR committee. The SOAR committee advised the town attorney to research the deed and to come to a determination. And if my memory serves correctly, we just received the email today. Is that correct? We just received Ms. Footner's email today. I believe that went to the entire council.
No. It went to
No.
you as chair of the open space
Okay.
and Dave Zoni as chair of the
So-
sewer, but that just happened today.
I haven't even read the whole
The state
thing
was-
through
the state
yet,
was
and we
through-
haven't met again with open space, so.
The state
that's where
gave
we're
their
at.
opinion, I think, a week or two ago.
Did the state see the deed?
Okay, so this will be on a future council agenda, so I'd like to continue public communications. So the microphone.
One more thing I want to say is that this is what we said at open space as well. Nothing's going to be done on that property until, but I was assured, this project is quite a way down the road. Is that correct, Mark?
Yeah, it's in the design phase.
Right,
Yeah,
so
all you approved so
nothing's
far is the
happening.
design. So obviously, the design aspect of it.
'Cause-
Design will stop.
I won't get into the difference in the two dollar amounts, but it's massive.
Because, Mr. Ricchio, open space is also up in arms. So but we're being professional, we're going to wait, we're going to
As I said.
get all the
you know,
information and.
Now that everyone's cooled down a little, I had a very good conversation with Tom. Tom, we've known each other for many years, and I said, if the issue revolves around other things besides this, we could discuss that. He knows that, and we will discuss that. It isn't necessarily the sewer issue. There's a lot of things beyond that, and it's the maintenance of the open space is one of the things that he wants to talk about. So
Right.
we'll be talking about that.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you,
So we'll
everybody.
continue with public communication, please.
Yes. Hi, my name is Win Philippek. First time I've ever been at a town council meeting. It seems like the town is in good hands. I'm not trying to patronize you because I'm going to be a little critical of some town employees. I don't know if this is the right forum for it, but anyhow, I just want to say that before I start, I think I'm allotted 5 minutes, so I'm going to read most of this. It was not my intention, but it's the only way I'm going to get through it. I just want to let you know that everything that I'm going to tell you tonight is factual, and I am not embellishing anything. I'm unhappy for a couple reasons. You might think they're very trivial, but I do not. The tennis courts at Recreation Park and the dealings I had with 3 of the Southington town employees. I want to give you a minute of background first.
Please don't mention the town employees' names. You can mention them as town employees, but do not mention.
Oh, boy. Okay, well, that's going to be a
It's a
problem.
personnel matter that you can sit down with me on, but we don't mention specific town employees.
Okay, okay. Don't mention them by name.
Correct. You can call them employee 1, 2, and 3 if you wish.
I can't say your secretary.
That's not funny, but go ahead.
No, I'm not. No, I'm serious. Okay.
I mean, they're public employees. I don't understand why you can't name them.
Because they're union employees.
Okay, I just, it's odd to me, but that's fine.
Okay, well, that's fine. It's going to take a little bit about from what I want to say. Anyhow, I was a combat Vietnam veteran in the infantry, and I spent over 30 years in the Postal Service as officer in charge of Bridgeport, Connecticut, 500-plus employees, Fairfield, Connecticut, Meriden, Connecticut. In 1983, I was appointed postmaster in Southington. I spent 12 years as postmaster in Southington, and I've been a resident now for 36 years. Tennis is an integral part of our family. John Weissel was one of my best friends, and played a lot of tennis with John down at the park, and have done so for the last 36 years. And we established a tennis tournament in my dad's name 15 years ago. It's called the Win Philippek Senior Memorial Tennis Tournament, and I'm telling you all this for a reason. We were honored by the state of Connecticut a couple of years ago for being named Special Tennis Event of the Year in New England. And also, This year, I was the director of the tennis tournament for the last 14 years, which consumed my time, but my wife was diagnosed with Alzheimer's about a year ago. So I had to let the Record Journal know that 2018 was our last year, and they did a wonderful job saying for Philippex, it's the end of an era. In addition to that, our family has bought tennis nets for Southington. We supported the Southington High School Court Club. We donate annually to the Bread for Life. And my father's scholarship, which is the result of the tennis tournament, has awarded $25,000 to Southington High School students. The reason I'm telling you all this is because for 72 years, I thought I have been a very good, conscientious, and community-oriented person. Let's go back to tennis for just a second. Over 36 years, everything was wonderful. Bill Massey and Dave LaPrey. I don't think Julie is there anymore. I don't even know if Dave LaPrey is there anymore, but I have complimented them on numerous occasions. Wonderful people to deal with. Always very accommodating, and you can ask them about the dialogue I've had with them. Wonderful to deal with. Every year they left the tennis nets up at the park. For those of us who love tennis, if the weather was decent, we played tennis in the winter, and we did that for 35 years. Last year, I went down, I think it was in November, maybe early December. There was no snow on the ground. And I went to open the gate to Rec Park, and it was locked. And I didn't even realize that the 3 tennis nets were down because they were never down before. And so anyhow, let's see. Can I say I called Dave LaPrey? Can I do that? No.
Go ahead.
Okay, no, never mind. I called the Recreation Department, who said the courts were no longer under his jurisdiction, and for me to call either Public Works or the Highway Department. I don't know. I didn't quite understand it, but I did that. And I spoke to the woman there, whom I will not name. And she told me that they were told that leaving snow on the tennis courts is beneficial to the tennis courts, and that she was locking them for the rest of the winter. And I told her I've been involved in tennis for 50 years, and I've never heard of such a thing. But anyhow, she would not relent. I tried to convince her to open up the courts, and I finally had to call the town manager. And he got back to me rather quickly and spoke to the other woman, and I guess there was a reconciliation, and he said we would leave 1 net up at each one of the parks, but lock the gates if there was snow. And I said I didn't quite understand why the gates were being locked. There has never been any damage. Everything has been wonderful for 35 years with the Park and Rec Department. Leaving snow on the tennis courts in the middle of the winter is unequivocally detrimental to tennis courts, because when the snow melts and it freezes again, the cracks elongate, they get deeper, and I happened to call the premier tennis installation company in New England, called Cape Island and Tennis and Track. They've constructed over 2,000 courts in New England, in particular over at Choate Rosemary Hall, where we used to have our tournament, some of the nicest courts I've ever seen. And I spoke to the gentleman who was in charge of the installation, and he told me the same thing. Snow is horrible for tennis courts. Leaving snow on a tennis court has absolutely no positive impact. So anyhow, this year, it snowed, someone mentioned earlier, 2 or 3 inches, 5 or 6 times. I went down to the park. The courts were never locked. We didn't play tennis when there was snow there, obviously, but then the warm weather came back, and a couple days after that, we played tennis. So that was for the first 5 or 6 storms. Not the last one that was 10 inches, but the one before that someone mentioned, 2 or 3 inches. I went down there, and the courts were locked. And I walked down at Rec Park a lot, and I walked down there for a couple days, and then I noticed that the courts were clear again. So I called up the Highway Department, and they opened up the courts. So anyhow, I'm coming down the home stretch here. Sorry, I'm coming down the home stretch.
If you could just try to wrap it up, because you are over your time, but I'm going to let you continue.
Okay, I'm sorry. Anyhow, we had the major storm, and so the courts were locked, and I went down the park and walked, and the snow was going away. So this Friday, I called the highway department and asked if, I said, the weather's going to be beautiful over the weekend, especially Saturday. There's still a little snow on the courts, but if you can open it up, maybe we'll have a chance to play. And I got absolutely not. Now, remember, the courts weren't locked all year long, but I got absolutely not. So I said, it doesn't make any sense. I'm going to call the town manager. And she said, go ahead and do it. I think she knew the town manager was out sick at the time. And so I called the town manager's office and spoke to whoever was answering the phone at 2 o'clock on Friday. It did not go very well. I raised my voice to her. I was not happy. I have never said a curse word in my life. I was not belligerent, but she ended up hanging up on me, and that's one of the reasons I'm here. I called the Public Works Department back. Oh, by the way, I left a message for his secretary to please call me or text me. I called her back twice. She would not pick up the phone. Call me or text me with the time and date of the next town council meeting. I never heard from her. So I called Public Works, and I asked to speak to the woman who made the decision about closing the courts. And the woman who was on the phone, I just spoke to the woman a couple of minutes ago. She said she's not here. And I said, well, do you know where she is or when she'll be back? And she said, I don't know where she is, and I don't know when she's coming back. And I said, she's your boss, shouldn't you know this? And she said, I don't need to take this from you. Bang, hang the phone up on me a second time. So anyhow, I have a couple other things to say, but the whole thing is kind of ignorant, I think. Can you just please open up? I went by tonight, the courts are clean, the lock is still on the thing, and there's absolutely positively no reason to do it. And secondly, I mentioned that I was a postmaster for 20 years in a couple of large post offices in Connecticut, and I got a lot of complaints from customers, a lot. I never, ever, ever hung up on one customer.
Thank you for this information. I'd like to ask the town manager to update the council. If you could, you don't need to do it tonight,
No,
but if you
absolutely,
could.
I'll update you, because obviously this is something that started in the fall, and I thought we had a resolution on it. It's very clear that I authorized the tennis courts, net to stay up at each tennis court. And if there's any snow or any water on those tennis courts, they stay locked, because I need them to be totally without snow, totally without water for freezing purposes, for liability purposes. Those are my standing orders. We agreed to that last fall. That's my understanding. What happened on Friday is the fact there was still snow on there. We are not going to spend a person to go in on Saturday and Sunday to check to see if they're melted off. We're not going to do that. More importantly, and obviously we've spoken, so we don't take anything personally with each other. But the fact of the matter is nothing is more important to me than customer service, and nothing is more important to me than protecting my employees. And my specific orders are, so if you want to blame anybody, and there's no one to blame here, because I'm going to read some stuff to you that's not going to make you feel good, is the fact of the matter is my job is to protect my employees. And I tell my employees, whether female or male, that they're not paid to take abuse. And I'm going to read a couple of emails. And I understand.
Okay, Mr. Mann, I don't want to get into a back and forth on the. Excuse, sir. Sir, I can't have a back and forth. So, Mr.
You asked me to answer to questions, Mr. Chairman, I'll be happy to do it.
Mr. Schoda, I'd like you to update the council. This is public communication. I feel like we're getting off the track a little bit tonight,
I could respond to I have it in emails from the three departments.
I don't want to go back and forth between comments.
Well, I don't want it left that my staff is rude to the people, because the fact of the matter is that's not the case. They are under my direct orders they're under my direct orders that they do not get abused over the phone. So therefore, they say, thank you very much, and hang up the phone. And with your indulgence, Mr. Chairman, I think this is important, because I don't want it left out there that this is something that my employees were being rude.
That's fine, Mr. Schoda, but I don't want to go back and forth with comments.
We're not. He's done. I want to give my part of it, if I may.
Briefly, please.
Okay, fine. There's three departments that he talked about. The first one I'm going to read is, and I won't mention the names either. The gentleman called and spoke with employee 1. He received a delinquent taxes on his real estate, and he wanted interest waived and said that he wasn't going to pay it. He became rude and started yelling. Employee 2 took over the call, and he said he was upset about paying taxes late. The employee, who explained the state statutes and didn't believe the town was governed by state statutes, he still wanted the interest waived, which was not done. and I'm just giving you this because these are the three departments he said he spoke with. He continued to be rude and yelling and wanted the statute number which was given to him. He admitted he forgot to pay the second taxes and was upset. She did not hang up on him. The second one, this gentleman called our office on two separate issues. This gentleman called our office on two separate issues. Each time he had called, he has been rude, loud, obnoxious, and was making it extremely difficult to assist him. He called back on Friday. He was speaking in a threatening manner regarding the tennis courts, saying if he wakes up and there is snow on the tennis courts, there will be hell to pay. I then hung up the phone on him. He called back 4 times and left rude messages.
Okay, Mr. Short, I think we get the point. I don't think this is appropriate tonight.
Well, I just don't want it out there that there's someone out there who thinks that my employees purposely hang up on people. That's not how it works.
Chris, I'm sorry, I will not say another word. He is absolutely unequivocally wrong. I failed to pay my second tax bill for the first time ever. That's a separate issue.
Okay. All right. Again, this is public communication. There should not be a back and forth communication. If we need to set up a meeting, that's fine. We can do that moving forward. But this is not the appropriate time or place to have the conversation. So public communication is still open. The microphone is open if any other member of the public would like to come forward and speak. Mr. Fischello? Again, just a reminder, if you can please limit your comments to 5 minutes. Mr. Fischello.
My name is Elio Fusillo, 82 Acton. When the police rounded me up in my home, and the other manager who I said that I do not know the remedy of the law. I think for people like me, there is no law. Because after I consult so many lawyers in town, they say, oh, Ilya, you should go out of town and see a lawyer. So I went, I called the FBI about 25 years ago. The fellow found me on, he was conflict interest. He sent me a Wethersfield. This gentleman, very highly late. I spent 1 hour. Well, 4 lawyers spend 1 hour each. It doesn't cost me money. I explained. This is not really funny, maybe to you. But to me, it is not funny because you use a police, a lawyer, to keep people slaves. And then you said the Constitution. I've been watching 20 years ago. What do you do the Constitution? For people like me, did you do the Constitution? I understand, Mr. Chairman, so on. The only thing that you're a family. Now, I spent 1 hour about the ventilator lawyer, and we really talk about the many things, but some that concern the law. Because this is a Tony Tranquillo, Mr. Chairman, a letter. In 85. Nothing ever go out without Chairman Meade and Weissel knew about. Nothing. They were well informed to everything. You know, I had a faith. I know a lot of gender people in this town. I met a lot of old people. When you made a deal, it's a deal. You can't say, and then, like Moshe, the priest said, can you prove it? The lawyer, there's 2 lawyers. They were not good. Mr. Eitzel and another lawyer, 85. I want to give this to the gentleman with the records. I don't mean it much to you. I never did, actually. Because it changed they pay a lot of money. Never did. Now, this is the law here.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See?
Thank you.
Yeah, I made so much effort to do everything very calm and very gently. Not because I'm a gentleman, but I just try to make
Mr. Fischello, if you could, so people can hear you, if you go back to the microphone. We can pass them out for you.
Yeah, so people can hear you over there.
I done everything what the lawyer said. The Sokolansky kept me 12 or 13 years. Say, I gotta listen to them, you gotta listen to them, and they will give you trouble. And I did. What's wrong with this? Okay? That's all. You gotta make everybody united to do the work on the land. So it cost me money. I got the guy in the bid, and we all, the neighbor, the boundary, we got together. Then this manager we know all about. But what is the law? You have a law in a town, they're supposed to represent the people, and you keeping me under my foot. I respect the police, I respect everybody. When I came on my property in 72, I didn't make no squawk. I obey and everything. And when they come around me up, again, I don't even know what it was. But I was around up because I was a danger to the community. I pay my tax. I pay $10,000 tax. In 80, I was, my son that came here, he says, nothing to eat and there's the fridge there. I said, go talk to the town. What is it, no conscience? What is it there? You never spend the $70,000, $80,000 to make the road that you promise. What kind of people are you? What kind of people? Not people. One gentleman, he said, I don't want to repeat the words that
Okay.
Mr.
Okay, Mr. Fischel, I need you to wrap it up, please.
Angelo Fosco said one word, there was two, so many others. Put them in agenda, Mr. Chairman. I'm not coming here and make a show, because so many show on the politics, I know. I want to just either get paid or do the road as I made the list. I want to thank you that.
Thank you, Mr. Fischello.
Giuliano told me when I explained. So what I explained to her,
Mr. Fischello.
it's exactly what they did.
Mr. Fischello, thank you. I need you to wrap up your comments, please.
I don't want to disobey nobody. I never did. I got better name, understand? That really don't care to me. I come here because I honor America. I work free for America 5 months.
Thank you.
Thank you what? Thank you. Do what I have to do, that's it. I don't need no thank you. I got a full thank you home. That's what it is. I got to make enemy because of some people, when you sit over there,
Mr. Fischello.
you don't listen
Mr.
to the law.
Fischello.
You are above the law. The people
Mr.
like me.
Fischello, please,
Mr. Fischello to
please. The microphone is still open. If any other member of the public would like to come forward, please come forward to the microphone.
You are the law. That's what you are. Our law. I should know better. Keep quiet. Mr. Chairman, do me a favor.
Mr. Fischello, your time is up. Your time is up. We need to move on with the meeting. Please step away from the
Move
microphone.
on with the meeting. I got to move on over my life, too. Okay?
Please step away from the microphone, Mr.
I wrote the
Fischello.
letter. My letter was this is the letter. This is the law. This
Mr.
is the law.
Fischello.
I'm talking. Why do you want to be there? Just
Okay, I'm calling a recess, please. We'll be on recess for 2 minutes. You're out of order, Mr. Fischello. Thank you.
My turn. My turn.
please. The microphone is still open for public communication. If there is anyone that would like to come forward to speak. Last call for public communication. Okay, again, just for residents that may be tuning in for the first time tonight, Mr. Fuschillo has come to the council for over 20 years. We've heard the same issue every meeting for certainly at least the last 20 years, and we have given him time and resources to try to work with him, including members of the council, as well as our current town attorney and prior town attorney. So we certainly have been open to try to work with Mr. Fuschillo, but we've heard the same issue time and time again. And many councils have heard that same issue. So just wanted to communicate that to everyone.
Chris, please, point of order. Just a quick comment on that to follow what you just said. Over the thousands of trees Mr. Fuschillo's killed over the years to give us papers, this is the first time I've seen this one. And I'm glad, because it says right on here, from his attorney dated June 15th, 1992. As I have told you on other occasions, this is dated to the town attorney back at the time, my client, Elio Fuschillo, is anxious to construct 1 or 2 homes on his property. I've never seen that before. The town of Southington gave Mr. Fuschillo his 2 lots.
Yes.
Not 1, we gave him 2 lots. We killed all the zoning regulations to make it happen. And we did it. If this were any other forum, he should be arrested for harassment. This council, every manager, every town attorney's bent over backwards for this gentleman. And I sit here every week and give him the benefit and well, I guess I have to continue doing it. But I'm just tired. After I saw this,
I didn't even get that same, I got a different paper, so.
Here.
Thank you.
It's right there.
And that happened.
It's ridiculous.
Between Michael and Mr. DiPaolo.
Mhm.
Mr. DiPaolo was chairman at the time. They went at it to make sure they were changing the zoning regulation at the time,
Right.
Michael? So that there was
Broke
gonna be
every rule in the book.
No backlot zoning at all. You couldn't build on a backlot.
And that's why I think it's important for the public to know that this council, as well as many other councils, have bent over backwards for Mr. Fuschillo to try to help him, so.
Mr. DiPaolo was able to get it through. He went to different,
Yeah, Bill DiPaolo,
Zoning Board
to
of
his credit,
Appeals,
man.
Planning and Zoning, we got
Right.
4 different zoning variances. Mr.
Okay.
Riccio is absolutely correct.
Thank you very much. So moving on, I'm closing public communication for this evening.
Thank God.
And we're moving on to old business. So first item under old business is item A, action on the public hearing for the tobacco vaping ordinance. So I'm waiting for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to accept the Town of Southington ordinance regulating the sale of tobacco, vaping, and nicotine products as written.
Excellent, thank you. I have a motion to accept. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. It's open for discussion. Mr. Lombardi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a very important issue, obviously, as we all know. I am always extremely hesitant when it comes to exceeding a state law, changing a state law, doing something like that. But I do have a couple of questions, and maybe at your discretion, they could be answered by town staff. I have 2 questions.
Sure.
Actually, it's 1 question and 1 comment. And my comment, I'll start with, and I cannot allow this to pass if this sentence remains in this document. Okay? And this is very important.
Why don't we
because
just get our
This is a detail that we're focusing on the major issue here, which I think many of us agree that there's a major public health issue here at stake. But there's a sentence on page 3 that says, in talking about licensing to the town of Southington businesses, right? The last sentence there says, no license shall be issued to a person under 21 years of age. That is unacceptable. If you open up a business and are 18 years old and abide by all the laws set forth by the state, that whatever the laws are to run a business, whether it's selling tobacco products, whether it's selling clothing, whether it's selling food, we cannot take that right away from a law-abiding citizen that wants to open a business that would put him at a disadvantage. So I would ask that sentence be removed. And then the other part of the question is I just want to understand the licensing process and how it is different or in addition to the licensing process of the state. So if I can get the licensing question answered, I can get that sentence removed to not hurt business owners that are 18, 19, or 20, or 18, 19, or 20, then I will vote in support of this proposal.
Okay, so I wish we had those questions ahead of time, because I could have, for the health question, directed it to Mr. Lockwood, who's not here this evening. But can I ask Deputy Chief Palmieri to just come forward, just to talk to the, from the police perspective, the Councilman Lombardi's first point about no one under the age of 21. And again, I know the licensing is given from the health department, and Mr. Lockwood is not here this evening, but if you could just talk to us about that.
I actually believe, Mr. Chairman, I can speak to both issues. As far as the no license shall be issued to a person under 21 years of age, changing that to 18 wouldn't be a problem. I would defer to the town attorney. The fact of the matter is, it's just, that doesn't affect whether or not how we enforce this ordinance. As far as the licensing goes, Shane Lockwood and we discussed was, we already have businesses that pay for a license that sell tobacco products. So he would create just another certificate that they will be for free, and they will give it to them and they'll maintain it like that. So that's how it will be. It'll be an addition onto the licensing that they already have with the town. The town knows what businesses sell tobacco products, so we'll create our own little certificate, and then he'll maintain that record. I can't talk to the state license process, but
we
also
already do something.
Yes.
We already do something regarding tobacco sales.
Yep.
So it's not in addition.
Yeah.
Well,
So I don't think the age, making it 18 is, because I agree with Councilman Lombardi. If I'm 18 years old and I have a business in town, that's fine.
Councilman
How if you own a liquor
Barry?
store? If you own a liquor store, you can be 18 and sell liquor?
Yeah, you can.
Okay, I didn't know. Because I know I didn't think.
You can't drink it, but you can sell it.
Okay, as long as it's consistent across the board.
No,
I'm not sure
yeah,
that
I
either.
would I would defer to the town attorney, though. I don't believe that if I was an 18-year-old person, that I could sell the tobacco products.
So from an enforcement perspective, again, taking what Councilman Barry said, if I'm 19 and I own a package store, I could sell liquor even though I'm not of age to consume it from a law enforcement perspective? Okay.
Best
That is true.
of
You can
my
sell it
knowledge,
as a
yes.
bartender and a
Yes.
waitress.
So you can own a liquor store at any age. I mean, 18, be fine. It's kind of like serving, like if you're a waitress, you can serve at age, like Kelly just said, you can serve at
Yes.
age 18. So there's no prohibition if you're 18 to own a liquor store.
Right, to the best of my knowledge, no.
Okay.
Okay, so as long as that's consistent.
Consistent with law.
And those are rules determined by the state. The Mr. Barry's question about how old you have to be to sell.
Correct.
Those are state. The town doesn't determine those issues.
Right, state.
Okay. Okay, so Attorney Futner, if you want to just weigh in, I just want to ensure that that's.
I don't know what the liquor laws are for a permittee at the state level. I could look it up, but I don't know it off the top of my head. As for the more business question, no licensee shall be issued to a person under age of 21. It's more of a business question than a legal question. As I said earlier, under the state statute that allows municipalities to regulate health and safety, I can see Councilman Lombardi's point. I don't see the difference between somebody being 19 or 21 and selling cigarettes or tobacco products. I don't know if that really necessarily goes to health and safety, so I don't see a problem with changing that.
Okay.
I would recommend that whole sentence just be removed, and then by default, it goes on state law.
Mr. Chairman, I accept that as a friendly amendment.
Okay, so we have and Dawn, you seconded that?
Well, I guess I'd want to hear from the authors of, the ordinance. Are you in agreement with that? Mm-hmm. To strike the entire sentence. Can I see the sentence?
Just procedurally, you're asking, the public hearing is closed, but you're asking a ex officio drafter of the ordinance a question, is that correct? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, then Billy, come on, can you answer that question?
Am I going to get FOI'd?
Yes.
Oh, so, yeah, I see now. It is just the one
Just the
sentence.
one
It adds
sentence,
nothing
no
else.
less
I'm
than
fine
12
then with amending my second.
Okay.
Okay. Deputy Chief Palmieri, I think we're all set. So we have.
The hook, Bill.
We have agreement with the person that made the motion and the person that seconded the motion. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Dietzick?
So I think this legislation is incredibly well intended. There's a lot of hard work behind it. I mean, I've heard a lot of strong public support. I guess in a perfect world, I'd rather see this done at a state level. I just think a state is more equipped to deal with this issue than a locality. I think it stretches our police powers more than they were intended. And unfortunately, no one was here from the business community making their argument, which is essentially if you have a business that's on a border between two towns and one town has a different age, you know, there's the unintended consequence of a loss of revenue for that business. No one's here to make the argument tonight. But I would like these things, I just think it's better to be addressed at the state level.
So on the flip side, I would argue that it's the right and responsibility of each municipality to meet the needs of our residents. And with the influx of vaping in our community, I'd say that Southington, as well as the other communities that are pushing forward with legislation like this, can be a guide for the state. One of the issues that is problematic with the governor's proposal, because this is also, there's two proposals at the state level. One is the HB 7200, and one is from the governor himself. And the problem with the governor's bill is, as I mentioned earlier, that does go after possession as well. So I think that these local municipalities passing ordinances like this will be a good guide for the state. Furthermore, it has passed in multiple, 430 localities in 24 states have passed a Tobacco 21 policy. Not states, but 430 local communities like us.
So if I just can have one more word on that. So, I mean, take two of our presentations tonight. So you juxtapose the Juniper presentation and how we're patting ourselves on the back about having, you know, the fast track, the ability to get permitting quickly. You know, we're kind of doing the opposite here. You're putting a 5-page ordinance on a business owner. I've read it multiple times. I get it, but I don't think it's an additional burden. So if the state passes legislation, now as a business owner, you have to comply with your local legislation regarding tobacco, the state legislation regarding tobacco, and any federal. I just think, again, I understand it's well-intentioned, and I think it has good results. I'm going to support it. But I just think in the future, we need to be careful because, like, extending our police powers.
So one of the arguments is in response to that, and this happened early on through discussion, really through steps, is that for many business owners, it's shown to actually be beneficial because now there's one standard of delivery for all those types of products, which is 21. So you're not, gee, is this an 18-year-old or is this 21-year-old type of delivery? So in some senses, it could be easier for business owners, and we discussed that early on as a con as well.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Yes, I appreciate Mr. Dietzick's perspective. I'd like to offer mine, and as many people know, I'm a high school teacher. And vaping, I'll speak primarily about vaping because that's the latest thing. It is first of all, this is a community. The community has to rally around this. In my school, I carry good rapport with my students. I'll periodically in the classroom say, guys, you know, in the confidence of the classroom, when you walk in the bathroom, how many times out of 10 are people vaping? And it's consistently a 9 out of 10, and sometimes a 10 out of 10 I get from kids. They say everyone does it. Now, okay, that's a choice. But what's happening also is that 18-year-olds are going and buying these products, okay? And then they're reselling them to 13 and 14-year-olds at the school. And so anything we can do to stop that, I think, is our responsibility to the youth of our community. I had a student come to me once. His performance was declining over time, and the kid broke down and said he could not control his addiction. This is a problem, a major problem, that I think that we need to address on the community level. And as a parent, as an educator, as an elected official, I don't think we can afford to stand by and wait for it to come down the pike from the state of Connecticut, who, quite frankly, they're not in our community, okay? And so they have a 30,000-foot perspective on this, and we're on the ground. I'm fully in support of this as a parent and as a community member.
Mr. Chair, can I just make
Yes.
another comment too?
Sure.
That argument doesn't even make sense to me, okay? Because what we just heard is that there's a major problems in the schools, which we know there are. There's a law already in place. The current law isn't working. So what are we going to do, add another law? I mean, if the school issue is such a problem, we should get up in front of the Board of Ed and start expelling these kids who are bringing these vaping products to school. So if the school, this is where I'm going to support this ordinance, because it is going to help a little bit, as Councilman Poulos said. But I'm just flabbergasted that it's this big of a problem, and maybe we need harsher penalties at the school level. So let's not fool ourselves in saying that this is going to be the solution long-term to the problem. Okay, we talked about kids being the victims. At some point, society has to take a step back and say, you know what? Bad decisions are being made, and the kids have to learn that they're responsible for their actions. Okay, but again, we're integrating a lot of different perspectives and theories in this. This is just a step to make it a little bit harder, but it's not going to solve the issue. The middle school vaping is still going to go on.
I think,
So-
Mr. Chairman, let me just respond. I think that, on the contrary, something like this is going to create an awareness. It's going to heighten an awareness amongst community members that this is something that needs to be addressed. And I think increased punishments is not the solution for the children, but rather education and awareness. And I think this is a first step towards that. We have a very successful STEPS program in this town, and I quite frankly trust the good work they're doing to help keep our kids safe.
One of the main
I
things.
hope you're correct.
One of the main things this does is limit access, and it sends a message to our youth that the community will not stand for underage possession of these types of products. As I mentioned earlier, we did talk about going after punishment for the students and decided not to pursue that because, again, they are victims of this as well, as the marketing is specific to them. So no one said that it's going to solve everything except for your statement earlier a few minutes ago. No one said it's going to be the be-all, end-all solution. It's a great step in the right direction, and I'm proud of the steps that we're taking to help protect our youth.
So-
Any other comments,
Yeah, I do.
Mr. Barry?
First of all, I'm supportive of the ordinance. It's clear that these companies that are using deceptive advertising practices to lure young people into their products. You see they sometimes resemble like juice boxes or candies or cookies. This is a real problem throughout our country. I think it's a good step. I want to thank everyone involved that's bringing this forward. So I'm supportive of it. I think it's absolutely horrible that some companies use such deceptive practices to lure young people into using these type of products, vaping, all these things that we never heard of that are just coming around today. I do have a questions on the violation and penalties of the ordinance. I am supportive of the ordinance, but I just want to make something clear. If someone does sell a product to someone under age 21, but they were presented with an ID that's fake, and let's say that they shouldn't have sold it to, but the person didn't know. Is there some penalty to that owner that they did check the ID played out? What happens? I mean.
So if I can ask
Yep.
Deputy Chief Palmieri, again, related to enforcement.
He's going to get his 10,000 steps in today coming to the podium.
The caucusing first.
FOI.
Why?
If the underage youth presents a false ID, the owner wouldn't be responsible for that.
They would or wouldn't?
They would not.
Oh.
If we documented that they had a fake ID, they would be misrepresenting their age, and then the owner of the business or the person that sold it wouldn't be liable or wouldn't be charged.
Okay. All right, good.
That
All right.
varies from the alcohol law.
Go ahead.
Just confirming, that varies from the alcohol law, correct? So if I walked into a establishment under 18 and presented a false ID, the establishment or under 21, the establishment and myself would.
We could charge the person using the fake ID.
Correct.
Right.
But you would also
No, we wouldn't charge the child. This would strike up a conversation with the parent, using the fake ID. Yeah.
But the owner of
But
the
if there's a true false ID that so you look at it and say, this looks real,
Yep.
of course we
Okay.
wouldn't hold the person liable for that.
Okay. I think the education part, I want to thank everyone involved. It's very important. One other thing, if the state does pass a similar law that would ban many of these products to only 21-year-olds, what would happen to our ordinance? Would the state supersede it? And let's say our ordinance is tougher than the state. How does that play out?
No, we still have the ability to use the ordinance, because we can be more restrictive if we want. But I think one of the problems we have to remember too, and the reality, I've been in the game for 34 years, and a lot of times if you look at the state, they're not going to tackle the big tobacco stores or tobacco owners until they see Hartford, Southington, Wallingford, South Windsor. When we start passing ordinance, then they're saying, wow, those are our constituents, we better start doing something, because if this didn't start at a grassroots effort, the state of Connecticut would not be addressing it.
Community effort. Thank you.
All right, great. Thank you.
So to that point, so far, I believe Hartford, South Windsor, and Bridgeport are the three communities that so far have passed a tobacco 21 ordinance. So far there's three. Mr. Ricchio, I think you...
Well, it's interesting, just a comment to what Bill just said, that the lawmakers in Hartford are going to be at an interesting crossroads because they want to legalize marijuana. So they're going to be up there saying, well, marijuana's good. Parents, you can smoke it in front of your kids, but kids, you can't smoke. But we're going to make a lot of tax revenue off the marijuana, so we're going to legalize it. I mean, it's just an interesting time. I have and this is not a joke question, it's a serious question. Did the committee, given the fact that tobacco products and all that stuff are really bad, and for not just kids, they're bad for everybody, right? Committee talk about just banning the sale of tobacco products 100% in town? Did it get to that level?
No.
Never came up?
No.
Okay.
No. So I think that's even more restrictive for,
Businesses.
well, businesses, but also 30-year-olds, 40-year-olds, that if you ban it altogether in town.
Oh, obviously it's restrictive.
Right.
I think the conversation shouldn't be about pot or alcohol or tobacco. I mean, we need to have a conversation in society about what is a legal age to become an adult, because I don't think anyone has the confidence in an 18-year-old to make decisions on what he does for him or herself, or siblings younger than him, friends younger than him. I don't think we do have the confidence to put recruiters in our high schools and haul them off to Afghanistan to take a bullet, right? But it's an interesting conversation. But I think that's the real conversation, is when do you become an adult? Because 18, you're not an adult.
Okay, any other comments before I call for a vote?
No, I just wanted to say very quickly, and I will make it quick, is just that a lot of work went into this. I think anything that would help. I'm really at that point.
Me too.
You know, after a while, you just say, we have to remember that it's addictive. So we have 16, 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids who are addicted. And anything we can do to help. I mean, it's not just a matter of saying, you shouldn't do this. The kids are addicted. You know, they need the help of a community to address it, I think.
And we're that community. So let's vote, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Madam Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Ricchio.
No.
Triano.
Yes.
Barry.
Yes.
Dietzick.
Yes.
Lombardi.
Yes.
Maselli.
Yes.
Morrissey.
Yes.
Poulos.
Yes.
Palmieri.
Proudly, yes.
Mr. Chairman, if I can make one comment, as all our ordinances are, they become effective 20 days after publication.
Yes, so I'd also like to ask the town manager, can you please make sure, maybe work with the Chamber of Commerce, I want to make sure all the business owners especially are aware of this particular ordinance.
No problem.
I just don't want any surprises later on with our
With your
business
permission,
community.
I'll send it to them, and they could put it into their monthly, we've all gotten them, the stack of flyers from.
That
the
would be
chamber,
great.
so,
And if you can also work with Steps, maybe we can send, I believe they have a list of all the suppliers in town, so if we can make sure that they're notified of the passage of this ordinance tonight.
We'll, certainly, once it's passed, we'll email it to Steps, and I'm sure they'll take care of that. part.
Okay, thank you very
Chamber
much.
has an e-board meeting tomorrow morning at 8:15, so I'll let the executive director and the chairman know that this is all coming.
Yeah, just find out from Taylor when their next mailing is, and I'll get it to them.
Got it?
Very good, thank you. All right, so moving on, we're on item B is action on the Board of Finance minutes. Just looking for a motion.
And I would move that we accept the Board of Finance minutes.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the Board of Finance. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Item C, action on commodity manager contract.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to accept Taylor Consulting and Contracting for $15,000 a year.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Before we vote on this, I just want to acknowledge that this is another one of those joint ventures, the savings between, partnership between the Board of Education and the town of Southington. So the more we can do that, I think the more beneficial it is for our residents. So this is a great step for us. So with that, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Action on contracts for open space recommendations. Looking for a motion.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Chair.
Okay, we have a motion to approve the contracts?
Correct.
Okay. We have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes. Item E, action on revaluation contract. I know we're not crazy about this one,
I'll make a
but
motion.
we have a motion
Okay.
to,
Okay, I'll make the motion, Mr. Chairman, to award the contract to Vision Government Solutions in the amount of $275,000. This includes the revaluation of all real property in Southington, including taxable, tax-exempt real estate, land, buildings, and improvements, as well as all public utility land and buildings. I'll make that motion.
okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. That passes unanimously. Item F, action on construction inspection contract for West Street, Jude Lane.
Mr. Chairman, I would move forward and make a motion that we approve the award for construction inspection contract on West Street and Jude Lane for the amount of $49,981.21, plus $6,000 direct cost for a total of $55,981.21.
Excellent. Very specific there. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Action on bridge repairs to 9 bridges contract.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion.
Okay, we have
Bridge
a,
repairs to 9 different bridges in town.
okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Action on Farmington Canal Heritage Trail final design contract.
Mr. Chairman, I'm recommending that we approve a motion for the town council to award the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail Final Design Consulting Engineering Contract to BL Companies. The contract amount is for $716,500, which includes the negotiated design fee of $582,400, $68,900 in direct costs, and $65,200 for supplemental work, as stated in the agreement between the town, the state, and the state.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Was that all one sentence?
Well, I just say that as presented is actually an appropriate motion also.
Excellent.
In the future.
Thank you, Mr. Shoda.
As presented in your packet.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Action on design of the Marion Avenue Bridge over Falls Brook contract.
Mr. Chair, I will make the motion as presented with regard to the Marion Avenue Bridge with the codicil that we're going to
Name.
discern what the correct name of the brook is.
Okay, that's part of the motion. So is there a second?
Yes, there's a second.
Okay, we have a second.
It's the
Thank
only
you.
right thing to do.
And that's included in your second as well, right? The naming? Okay. Excellent. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. Moving on to new business, tax refunds. Councilman Dietzick.
I'll make a motion to approve the tax refunds as itemized in the town council packet.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that passes. Last item under new business is appointment of the Senior Citizen Commission. We have 3 members up. Through the minority leader, I'm pleased to reappoint Kimberly Roy. I'd also like to reappoint Paul Shapenko, who I spoke to earlier.
He's sitting
to-
in the audience too?
Oh,
Waited the
nice
whole
to meet you.
time.
I spoke to him earlier today. There we go. So, thank you to both Mr. Shapenko and Ms. Roy. And then I'm going to ask to table the last appointment. So with that, they are so hereby appointed. Congratulations and thank you for your service. Thank you to Ms. Roy as well. And finally, I am looking for a motion to adjourn into executive session to discuss real estate.
So moved.
Okay, and with that motion, I'd like to include the Economic Development Coordinator in our executive session. Is that okay, Mr. Lombardi?
And Mr. Phillips.
Yes.
And Rob Phillips.
Motion to adjourn, as stated by the chairman.
Okay, so we have a motion. Is there a second? Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Aye. We are in executive session. Thank you all.
Billy. No, I just said Greenwich. I thought Greenwich did too. Yeah, no, added one more town.